evening, everyone, and welcome to the Maitland City Council meeting of May 11th, 2026. If you please remember to silence your cell phones or other devices. And also, we've got a couple of items tonight where a lot of people would like to speak. It'd help us greatly if you would fill out a speaker's card ahead of time so that we can make sure we spell your name right and get that for the record in the minutes. This evening, I just found out about the passing of a valued member of our community, Jim Panico. And if you would indulge us, we would like to say a few words about Mr. Panico's service to the city of Maitland over the years. And I will ask Councilman Randolph to lead that.
For those of you that don't know Jim Panico, he was a local attorney that lived over in Lake Sabia. Unfortunately, April 29th, at the age of 90, he passed away. And Jim was a longtime resident. He moved here back in 1968 as part of the Martin Company and served as an administrator there, and then got the bug to resign from Martin and go to law school at University of Florida and became an attorney. In 91, we had a former councilwoman, Jermaine Marble, who passed away in the middle of her term. And if you've been over the Art Center, we have a building named after her over there. Jim was appointed to fill that last year and a half of her term. And then he ran 2 more times and served as a council member for 6 additional years. And I had the distinction of, in 2005, he and I were awarded Volunteer Citizen of the Year together in 2005. So I just wanted to recognize that Jim was a long-standing member of this community, contributed a lot over the years to various organizations, the Civic Center. He was on their board, on this council for quite a while. So just in recognition of him tonight, I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. And as is our tradition, if you would please join me for a brief moment of silence. Okay, thank you. And now, if you're willing and able, would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Well, the first thing we're going to do is to disband this meeting, which is a little odd, but we're going to recess as the City Council and come back in as the Community Redevelopment Agency. And we have with us a new member of the CRA. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Mr. Aga.
Hello, everyone. My name is, you'll hear me. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mohammed Aga. I moved here about a year ago. I'm a physician at Advent Health Winter Park, and I'm the Orange County member for the Community Redevelopment Agency. So nice to meet all of you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Aga. So the CRA is essentially the City Council plus one member from the Orange County, who Mr. Aga is that representative. So let us convene the CRA meeting. I promise it will be brief. Do we have the consent agenda as the first item. Does anybody on the CRA wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? I'm sorry. Let me back up 1 second. We're going to do the minutes first. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. Yeah, right, I see. And for the remainder of the consent agenda, does anybody have any item they'd like to pull? Seeing none, we could have a motion for the remainder of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion for the remainder of the consent agenda be approved.
I'll second.
Okay, Lori, would you call the roll, please?
Member Shaney,
Aye.
Member Givens,
Aye.
Member French,
Aye.
Member Randolph,
Aye. Aye.
Member Aga,
Aye.
Chair Lowndes.
Aye. Okay, we will adjourn the CRA and reconvene as the Maitland City Council. And the first order of business for us this evening is presentations. Let me do a couple of presentations for the Maitland City Council. Okay. We have with us the Director of Public Works, Kim Tracy. Thank you, Kim. And if you'll bear with me, I will read a proclamation regarding National Public Works Week. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, emergency management, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Maitland. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals and who are federally mandated first responders and the engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment and wastewater systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas such public works services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, engineers, managers, supervisors, and employees of the City of Maitland. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the City of Maitland to gain knowledge and maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works first responders and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2026 marks the 66th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association, and whereas the American Public Works Association has selected Rooted in Service, Powered by Community as its theme for 2026 National Public Works Week. Now, therefore, I, John P. Lowndes, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the City of Maitland, and with the concurrence of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of May 17th through May 23rd, 2026 as National Public Works Week in the City of Maitland, and encourage all citizens to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works services. All right. Kim, would you like to say a few words?
Yes.
Okay, and then we'll
Thank
present
you,
you
Mayor.
this. Yeah.
Mayor, Council, I want to thank you on behalf of our department for your continuous support. You all are always behind us in what we do, so that's really appreciated. And I wanted to remind you that next week we will be celebrating our National Public Works Week with our 5th annual Public Works Rodeo. So I hope to see you all there.
Fire Chief Morton. I have a proclamation for you as well. Okay. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of the emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of the Maitland Fire Rescue Department engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, I, John P. Lowndes, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Maitland and with the concurrence of the city council, do hereby proclaim May 17th through May 23rd, 2026 as Emergency Medical Services Week with the EMS theme, EMS Week, Improving Outcomes Together in the city of Maitland, Florida, and encourages all citizens to publicly recognize and express appreciation to all members of the Maitland Fire Rescue Department for their care and dedication to the citizens of Maitland. All right. Chief Morton, picture with you first. Yes, sir. All right. Do you have a few words you'd like to say, Chief?
Mayor, council, just want to say on behalf of the firefighters that we appreciate the support that you all continue to do for us. These men and women in the back strive every single day to provide the highest quality of care for the residents. They train all the time and they work 24/7, and we couldn't do it without your support, and I couldn't do it without them. So just want to thank them every single day. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's, all right. Good, old business. Mr. City Manager, is there any old business?
No, sir.
Okay. Consent agenda. Does any council member wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? All right. Does anybody from the public have comments on consent agenda items 4 through 7? Okay, seeing none, let's close the public comment period, and a motion will be in order.
I move we adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Lori, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Givens,
Aye.
Councilmember Shaney,
Aye.
Councilmember French,
Aye.
Councilmember Randolph,
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Okay, and now is the time for the public period. This is the time at which anybody from the public can get up and address any item they wish to address. Although if there's an item on the agenda later, we're going to have a public period for that as well. So if you're here for any of our items that fall later on the agenda, you might want to save your time for that. I believe, okay, and we have a speaker's card for Robin Dowden, but I'm not sure if that is for an item that's coming up later on the agenda, and if that's the case, we can hold off. It's later, okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Which item?
The bridge. Okay, so anybody at all for any item or any issue of general concern in the public period? Okay, seeing none, let's close the public period and we'll move on to our decisions. The first decision this evening is the first reading of ordinance number 1458. Lori, would you please read the ordinance title?
Ordinance number 1458, an ordinance of the city of Maitland, Florida, amending the official zoning map, a part of Article 1 of Maitland Land Development Code by changing the zoning classification of property generally located north of Maitland Boulevard and west of Terlago Way, further described herein, from plan development to plan development, approving a conceptual development plan for Lot 6 of Maitland Concourse North, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Right, Mr. Daniels, are you here to introduce the item?
I am. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Mike Daniels with the Community Development Department. Here to provide staff comments for Ordinance 1458 regarding an amendment to the Plan Development Zone for Maitland Concourse North Lot 6. The applicant for the amendment is Jonathan Yules with Lowndes Law Firm. The property owner is BPL Maitland Concourse North. It's currently undeveloped and it's zoned planned development. And it's the land use is a corridor district, MCN being an area of special consideration within the comprehensive plan. The request is to amend the plan development. To provide a little bit of history on Maitland Concourse North, initially it was approved as part of the comprehensive plan in 2013 that established a mix of uses for areas within the boundary with an overall total site floor area ratio limit of 0.3 with a total of 869,000 square feet. That was followed up with an approval to the zone, which is a plan development in 2016. Between 2016 and 2025, infrastructure improvements have been made to Lot 4. Lot 8, which is a passive park, was deeded to the city. Lots 1, 2, 5, and 7 have been completed. Lot 3 was approved for a PD amendment and is currently under site plan review. Now, specifically for this property, Lot 6, in April of 2025, the applicant called a community meeting regarding a request to change the comprehensive plan to allow for 85 additional residential townhome units for the site. So after the community meeting in April, the applicant then submitted an amendment to the comprehensive plan, an amendment to the PD for Trulago townhomes consisting of 85 units with 15 4-unit 3-story buildings and 5 5-unit 3-story buildings. This was initially taken to as a comprehensive plan amendment in August and transmitted to the state. It was then adopted by the city in February of 2026. The next step in the development process is to move forward with their plan development, which is their zoning district. This is an aerial view of the site. As you can see, the site is undeveloped. Lot 8 is to the northwest of the site. That is a passive park that will remain undeveloped. There's also a retention pond to the north. There's multifamily to the east. Into the southeast is retail. To the south central areas where Lot 3 is located, that is currently going through site plan review for a retail grocery store. And to the west is Lake Charity. Here's another aerial view. The property in question is sort of in the middle of the screen, just south of Lake Charity. And again, you can see the existing retail development further south from the proposed development. So the applicant is proposing to go through a site plan approval for an 85-unit townhome development on Lot 6, which is approximately 6.85 acres. Their main access will be off of South Concourse Parkway to the south. They are showing that they are meeting the parking requirement, which is 1.7 spaces per each unit plus 0.1 spaces for guest parking. So they have a total of approximately 180 parking spaces, 9 of which would be guest parking spaces. 171 spaces and 9 would be guest parking spaces. Each unit will have a garage where they will be providing parking. Here is a copy of their landscape plan. They are showing landscaping predominantly along the boundaries of the subject property. Again, this area right here, they're not showing any trees. However, this is where the passive park is located, so that's predominantly very dense with trees in this location. Staff is requiring that additional tree buffering be provided on the north and northeast and along the southwest corner, again, to enhance the buffer up against adjacent properties. This item was taken to the Planning and Zoning Commission in April, and it was unanimously approved. However, one of the issues that the Planning Commission members brought up was the issue of the existing fire truck turnarounds that had been shown on the initial plan that was taken to P&Z. And what that showed is that all of the turnarounds were going essentially all basically back to the edge of each lot. And what the Planning Commission had requested is that staff work with the applicant to see if those turnarounds could be either eliminated or reduced to provide for more open space. After working with staff, the fire truck turnaround in the northern corner is to remain the same size, but the other turnarounds, which isn't just for fire trucks, it could also be for other utility vehicles or service vehicles, they have been reduced, thereby providing additional pervious area for landscaping. In addition to that, they're also providing, in this yellow area, they're providing 7 parallel parking spaces. So they're adding to their guest parking. So they're going from 9 guest parking spaces up to 16. As part of the approval for the initial plan development for Maitland Concourse North, there were specific elevation residential scale requirements for their architectural plans. So as part of that, it is incumbent upon every new development to come in. They must comply with those requirements from the original architectural plans that were approved as part of the original PD ordinance. Those requirements include, basically it's a guideline where it mentions specific architectural styles, such as Mediterranean, Southwest Mission, as well as Craftsman. However, the language is clear that these are guidelines as opposed to having specific architectural elements that are mandated for every development. So as part of the development process, both at the PD stage and also at the site plan stage, it is incumbent that the applicant show that they are in compliance with those architectural requirements. This is what has been provided as part of the PD, the plan development submittal. However, staff did have comments on this plan, and I know as part of the applicant's presentation, they're going to go a little bit more in depth in some of the changes that they're making in terms of their architectural plans. At this plan, prior to going to Planning and Zoning Commission, this was approved through the Development Review Committee in March. And there were 12 different conditions of approval. That's included in your packet. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I did want to highlight some of the key conditions of approval. Number 1, compliance with the conservation easement. There is a bald eagle nest, which is not located on the property, but it's within 660 feet. So if you're within that distance, there are specific requirements for construction in close proximity to an eagle's nest. So they will have to comply with those requirements. All of the signage and lighting standards have to be consistent with the Maitland Concourse PD and Maitland Land Development Code. As I mentioned before, additional landscape plantings to the north and southwest are required to fill in gaps and enhance visual buffering. And additional information on the architectural plan, such as providing a detailed materials list, providing offsets, and additional information on the architectural plans is required as part of the site plan process. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the plan development amendment with conditions based on the findings of the DRC staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Daniels?
Just real quick, that hammerhead on the north side, why was that not reduced?
The reason it wasn't reduced on the north side is because from the fire department standpoint, there is a requirement that if the length is greater than 150 feet, then they have to have that that emergency turnaround.
Okay.
And they have to have it meet the largest possible fire truck available.
Okay. All right.
The others didn't meet that requirement, so that's where they were able to be reduced.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions of Mike?
The applicant does have a presentation as well.
Okay. All right. Would the applicant like to present their presentation now?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Jonathan Hewells with the Lowndes Law Firm, 215 North Eola Drive, Orlando, 32801. Just have a short presentation with some supplemental materials to help add to the presentation that Mr. Daniels just gave, which was very thorough and good, and we concur with the findings and the recommendations made in his staff's presentation. Just as a reminder, this is the text amendment for the city's comprehensive plan that was before City Commission in February. This process actually kicked off over a year ago now in April of last year. But the first action that City Council had taken was the approval of this text amendment to the city's comp plan. And what that allowed for was for this lot to, in addition to what it was already approved for a multi-story office building with structured parking, to also allow it to be potentially developed for the use that is part of the PD amendment today, which is the 85 townhome residences. At that same time, as was mentioned, the PD amendment was being processed through staff review during that time. It actually, the PD amendment's almost been under review for almost a year, with it being submitted back in last June. Here's just another version, a colorized version of the site plan. This is going to be part of the PD amendment. And this shows with an aerial overlay just where the townhome project would be fitting in. It is going to be 85 residences. This is the most up-to-date site plan, so it shows that reduction in the size of those turnarounds, affectionately known as hammerheads. They do allow for moving trucks to be able to make that turning move if in case there was a need for it with someone moving in or out of their homes. And it does show those additional parking spaces that have been provided for based on comments from Planning Commission at last month's review. This was shown, but this is just another example of the landscape plan where it shows those enhanced landscaping plantings that staff has requested and has been incorporated into the plans for the project. In terms of conceptual elevations, as part of this PD amendment review, there is a requirement that conceptual elevations be reviewed and approved. It's part of the process along with when staff is looking at the site plan and making comments through that. It's an exhaustive review even at this point. However, the final elevations won't be set until the preliminary subdivision plan, which would be the next step in the city's review and approval process if this PD amendment is to be approved by City Council. This is the latest version that we have of the conceptual elevations. We wanted to provide those to just show where we're at in the process and what those would look like as part of this PD amendment, with the understanding that will continue to evolve to a final set based on additional review and comment from city staff. But where we've been so far is it's a rather rigorous review process with your staff. They're good at what they do, and they provide plenty of feedback and direction for what they're looking for. A couple of slides just to walk you through that. The slide on the right is an example provided by staff as part of their comment and review, and the left is the conceptual elevation for the project, incorporating or trying what we believe has incorporated the comments from staff. And I think that's been shown based on their recommendation for approval. Here's another example of the example on the right and the conceptual elevation at on the left. And another example, and these are all packaged in staff review comments that come back. It also has narrative feedback as well, but a prime example is given. Just a little bit of a more enhanced time frame of where we've been. Like we mentioned, we had in the city council chambers over a year ago our community meeting where we showed a site plan that was close to what is being presented to you today, although it's been modified and changed based on staff's review. And this is the fourth time that the project's been before you all in this process, and there's even going to be a fifth time if the first reading is approved by tonight. From there, it goes on to, like I said, the preliminary subdivision plan, which is a staff-driven, very rigorous review process. Just in a comparison between the two uses that are now permitted for the For the lot, the column in the middle or the use on the left is for the office uses that it's currently entitled for, and the column on the far right is the proposed project, the 85 townhome residences. And what you'll see is that there is a great reduction in infrastructure needs for the townhomes versus an office use. You have trip generation, vehicle trips being generated by either the two uses being cut by approximately 2/3. You have water use being dramatically reduced. You have wastewater use cut in half, and you have impervious surfaces just reduced overall. And one last note, just in case there's a comment or question that may come up, is, part of this process, you do go through a school capacity review that was undertaken here. It's an application you submit to the school board. They review it and provide you a formal report. And this report shows that the districted schools at all three levels, elementary, middle, and high school, do have capacity for the student generation. That it's a calculated formula, but that would come from the 85 townhome residences. So with that, in addition to myself, I should have introduced Josh Conradi with Kimley Horn. He's here in case there's any questions. He's the project engineer, and we do have several folks from the home builder David Weekly Homes is also here. So happy to answer any questions you have, and would just ask for an opportunity to address any comments from the public if there are any after public comment periods. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hewells. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Hewells? Okay, well, thank you very much. I think the next thing to do now is to have comment from the public. Does anybody from the public have any comments on this ordinance, this proposed ordinance? We do have a speaker's card for Alan Sharon. Is Alan here? Is this the item you'd like to speak on, sir? Yeah. Okay.
This one, sir.
This would probably be better over here.
Okay. Get a little handout that you can pass around. Make copies there. I don't know if you can put the one of the plans you had of the subdivision that was earlier up there of the Chirlago apartments that were next door.
I don't know, Mike, do you have?
Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Alan Sharon. I own the property at 101 Chirlago Way. It's part of the Chirlago development. That this is one of the parcels. It's known as Lot 1. If you could turn to that. Yeah, the next one, go back. We'll come back to that. I was looking for the one that has the subdivision.
The site plan?
No, okay, yeah, pause there for a second. There was another one to show. In any event, again, I'm Alan Shawn. I'm the developer. I'm actually developing Lot 1. It's a 7.5 acre parcel. This parcel is Lot 6 of a 7 parcel subdivision. And the one parcel I have is the one that's up front on the main drag. We're getting ready to build 5 buildings out there, a total of 75,000 square feet. When I bought this property almost 5 years ago, and I've been planning on this for 5 years now. Just to give you a quick background with Chirlago, the name stands for the 3 lakes out there, and kind of gives it the nautical feel. One thing that we're incorporating into the project is a bit of a nautical feel. The whole design of Chirlago was to have a Mediterranean type style to it. It was actually designed after a project up in the Panhandle. I call it the sister project, Alice Beach. Alice Beach, if you're familiar, is up there in the Panhandle. Beautiful project. All the buildings are white. They have white tile roofs. And that's kind of why you see the apartment behind us and the ACLF community over there. They're all white buildings and, have this beautiful Mediterranean style. So if you look at this building right here behind it, this apartment complex there, you can't so much see it, but that's the reason I passed out a rendering here, that there's this beautiful Mediterranean style parapet wall on the front of all these buildings. The reason I present that is that that's one thing when I came into Maitland, I looked at this property. And I first looked at it and I said, wow, it's an interesting project out there. Looking at the apartment complexes, seeing what they were going to build, and then seeing what the previous developer was going to do. And then I met with the Pythagoras that owned and were developing the land. And I met with the city and I saw what they were looking to do out there with this proposed development at the time. Yes, sir. Okay. So in any event, So there's one thing to talk about the project and the design of the project. It's also to talk about what it was designed after. The sister community, I call it, up in the Panhandle, a gorgeous, beautiful project. As a matter of fact, this weekend I'm going there because they have an annual function there. It's called the Digital Fest, and it's very unique to the project. It's almost like an art fest like Winter Park has, but it's from a digital standpoint. In any event, you know, all those buildings up there are white. Something that's happened in this community is you can see the adult living community out there. It's all white, and the apartments have white, but they mixed in a little bit of color with it. And that's what we're proposing as well. The apartment, the retail center next door to us, if you look at, they have that parapet on the front of it. When Amazon came along in that project, they actually kind of watered down the design a little bit to make it look a little bit more of a community grocery store in there. To the contrary to that, we've been taking our project for the past 5 years, year after year, month after month, of trying to improve the design of our project. I'm hoping at the end of the day, I can stand here in front of you and say that I've designed what I think is probably the nicest project in Winter Park or Maine. And so that's the reason I'm standing up here today. I'm up here to protect the city's investment and the city's quality that I see out there. I spent countless hours in developing a beautiful project here. I've dealt with the city. And one of the things the city asked me to do is to put not only concrete tile on the front of my building, but on the back. So one of my buildings, when you're driving through it, you'll see has concrete tile on the front and the back. To the contrary, this rendering up here shows a black shingle roof. The design of this project has no resemblance to Trulago itself. There is, matter of fact, I called the attorney, I called and met with, I called to try to get a conference call with David Weekly, just to let him know that, hey, I have an interest in you all doing development out there. I'm not here to shoot down your development. I'm just asking that we protect the quality of Maitland. And so I'm here looking to develop a nice quality project. And I'm asking the same for this council and for you, Mayor, is just to look for the same thing. At the end of the day, I want us to have a beautiful project out there, one we're all happy to share. And so that's one thing I want to mention.
Mr. Sharon,
yeah.
we're kind of at time here. If you can kind of wrap it up.
Okay.
Please.
So what I passed out is you look at the parapet wall on the front of these buildings. All I'm asking for is in their rendering that they have that same beautiful Mediterranean style parapet wall like we have at the ACLF, like we have at the apartment, like we have and throughout the project. So I'm asking for that, but also to have a concrete tile roof instead of asphalt shingle and to give this more resemblance of the apartment complex. Those apartments, by the way, I don't know if you're familiar, but have just recently sold for the highest price per unit in Central Florida of apartment complex. So those are just some of the other things. Yeah,
Okay.
that's pretty much it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sharon. Anybody else have any comment from the public on this first reading of the ordinance? We'll come back for a second reading in a couple of weeks. Okay, seeing none, let's close the public comment period. And is there any further discussion on council? If not, motion will be in order.
I just was wondering if there is that standard at Trulago, and did David Weekly coordinate with them?
I think Mr. Hewells wanted to be able to respond, so let's give him a.
Sure. No, yes. And a nice put a face to a name. I did conduct a couple calls with Mr. Sharon. Wanted to understand where he was coming from and seeing if there was, what the concerns were, if there was things to address. But the process is that the city staff dictates and goes through a vigorous review process. There isn't a specific design handbook for Trulago, but there are guidelines, and those guidelines have been applied to every built and will be built project out there. It's mixed use, so it has all sorts of different uses, including ALF, apartments, rental apartments. This will be fee simple townhomes, and it's staff that has, it's that process that it's why it looks like it does today. And staff has applied those guidelines in the same manner to each. Now each is a different use and it looks a little bit different. But that's the process we've went through, the same process Mr. Sharon's project has gone through. And like we still have to go through and those we think we're on the right path. We think we have a beautiful project. Weekly builds very nice homes. This is being aimed to top of the market here in Maitland, and we think what is being shown, meets that mark. We respect his comments. Everyone has the ability to comment. I think he's got a great project, but we think we have a great project too, and look forward to working through staff on finalizing how those elevations are going to look like. In terms of the parapet walls, there are just concerns from this type of use being single family ownership and being able to build something that's going to be not have any issues in the future. There's been some experience in the past from Weekly in using a parapet wall, and unlike some of the other uses where it's a common area that those are often found in, these would be these will be the homes that those parapet walls will be on, and there's just a concern of maybe long-term maintenance and potential water intrusion involving that type of architectural treatment here. And also to speak, during our community meeting, there was a heck of a lot more people speaking on this project over a year ago than there are today. And some of those comments were from the general community. A lot of folks from across the lakes came over and wanted to understand. And some of their comments were the concern for the impact of their view shed from their homes looking over the lake. And so there was a conscious effort to be respectful of those concerns. And then the massing of these buildings reflects that, we believe. And that when you start adding architectural treatments on the roof line, you start growing your massing, you start having a greater potential visual impact on some of those lakefront owners. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hills. Anybody else have any comments? Okay. How do we feel about this? Anybody feel like they'd like to move it along?
I'll make a motion that we approve on the first reading, ordinance number 1458, plan development zoning change, Maitland Concourse North, MCN Lot 6, with the caveat that they comply with the 12 comments the city has made.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Lori, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Shaney,
Aye.
Councilmember Randolph,
Aye.
Councilmember Gibbons,
Aye.
Councilmember French,
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Okay, it is past first reading. We'll come back for a second reading in due course. Let's move on to our next. Thank you, gentlemen, for appearing tonight. Let's move on to the next item, which is request for reduction of fine for code violations. Mr. Daniels, are you going to take us through this one as well?
I'll be providing staff comments on the proposed lien reduction request at 2641 Carver Avenue. To provide a little bit of background, back in November of 2023, the city received a call from a neighbor regarding concerns about overgrowth, junk and debris, and an inoperable boat in the backyard of 2641 Carver Avenue. Code enforcement officer opened an investigation and found that there were outstanding violations, overgrowth, inoperable vehicles, vegetation growing on the structure, and an unsecure structure. As a result, notice of violation was sent to the property requiring that the violations be remedied by January 10th. When they weren't remedied, the applicant or the code enforcement officer took the case to the magistrate, who found the property owner guilty of multiple violations and required the property owner to remedy the code violation by September 7th, 2024. When that wasn't remedied, the magistrate then issued an order imposing a fine of $250 per day from September 7th, 2024 until the property owner fully complied with the order. The next step, because it was not remedied, the next step was to move forward with foreclosure. At that meeting in January 2026, Venetia Green, who's the appointed representative of the estate, requested a 90-day continuance, and it was granted. And then the property was brought into compliance on March 3rd, 2026. So basically, the property was out of compliance from 9/7/2024 to 3/3/2026 at $250 a day. That equals $135,500. The applicant has requested that the lien cost be reduced to $2,000. As far as from the staff standpoint, in keeping with the industry standard and our precedents, staff is recommending that the fine be reduced to 10% of the total in the amount of $13,550 in order to cover staff costs and also to ensure that there is a penalty when you have a property that's out of compliance for, 2.5 years. So with that, staff is recommending a reduction of the fine amount to 10% to $13,550. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I believe the property owner is here as well.
Okay, let's stick with you for a moment, Mr. Daniels. Does anybody have any questions on this item?
Who is the owner?
I think she's,
Venetia Green is the court-appointed representative of the property. It's an estate property.
Okay.
okay. No questions of Mr. Daniels? Okay, Ms. Green, Venetia Green, would you like to address the council? And you can come either side.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Venetia Green, the personal representative of the estate of Herbert Green Jr. Mr. Green passed away in January of 2023, and the property is currently under probate. I am one of the people that's been responsible for the estate since then, but as it pertains to a lot of the hands-on landscaping and upkeep, we had been depending on certain family members to help attend to some of those tasks. I take responsibility and I regret the amount of time that it has taken to get the code enforcement issues in line, but we were able to bring them into line March of this year. Part of the reasoning is many of our family members and themselves had major health concerns. And I do have a document from the medical facility, from the transplant facility, indicating that that was one of the reasons by the several months of them not being able to kind of take care of some of the concerns. But we do want to take responsibility for the fact that there were code enforcement, a period of time that there were code enforcement issues. And I do appreciate the consideration that's been offered thus far for the reduction of the fine. The fines exceed the amount of value of the property totally. And even the amount of reduction that's been offered there with the 10% is still a hardship on the estate for the current amount that's available, the very, very limited cash funds. So I'm just here to, again, just to express our regret that it has taken this long to bring it into compliance and that the fines did amount to that amount that it is masked, but just again to ask if you might reconsider the request that it be reduced to the $2,000 or some lesser amount.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Green.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions, Ms. Green? Okay, thank you. All right. So is there any questions or any discussion about how we want to approach this? Anybody have any ideas about a motion, perhaps?
Personally, again, I can understand hardships, but the fines were accrued. Our staff had to go out there, take care of things. We have to at least cover our cost. And so I think that's what this 10% reduction represents, is pretty much what our city staff cost was for this.
Mm-hmm. Right. And the purpose of code enforcement obviously is not, it's not punitive at all. It really is just to bring people into compliance with the code. And it took a long time for this one, but we're in compliance with the code, as I understand. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And yes, I understand we need to cover our costs, sending our code enforcement officers out there and getting things in order. And there's somewhat of a deterrent issue perhaps as well, so that people understand that when when fines accrue, that the cities should be taken seriously on bringing things into compliance. I mean, these are all the considerations we're taking into account here this evening. So let's go to the public on this, just to see if there's any public comment, now that everybody understands the issue. Is there anybody from the public wish to speak about this? And if so, please come to the podium. If we just get your
Hello.
name for the record.
Beth Rossiter.
Mhm.
My question for the council is, has anyone on the council seen the property? Been out to look at the property? No.
What's the question?
Has anybody on the council seen the property?
No.
Is the question?
Been out to look at the property?
No, I've not visited the property.
I've looked at it on Google.
On Google Earth. I would just encourage the council to take a look at the property before rendering a decision. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Rossiter. Does anybody else from the public have any comment on this item? Okay. Yeah, I think that the other thing to take into account, I think, is the value of the property and the impact of the lien on this particular property, which I understand it's a modest property. And the lien that will stay, and perhaps this is a question for Cliff or Mark, the lien costs would be reduced to, the request is that the lien cost be reduced to $10,000 or $13,000 rather. And the applicant has asked for it to be reduced to $2,000. What is the actual impact of that? I mean, are we just going to maintain a city lien on the property, or this is not a cash transaction? Is it?
It depends on how you formulate the reduction. So for example, pick the number, whichever number you pick. If you said, here's the reduction that we're offering, but it has to be paid within X amount of days or the full amount goes back into effect, then, and that would be what I would recommend, by the way, if the full amount's in effect, then you can proceed with foreclosure. But foreclosure has to be authorized.
Okay, the full amount of whatever
Whatever it is accumulated to, yeah.
Okay, so will it just remain as a lien on the property otherwise? Or?
And it remains as a lien, but if you just reduce the lien without a payment deadline and without the trigger that makes it go back up, you're now at a lower lien that bears interest, but at the lower rate, not the bank that you would get for the full amount. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it has to be structured like a settlement, that we're only willing to take less on the lien, which we will then satisfy if it's paid within X amount of time. And that way the lien does not change. It stays whatever it is today, but you've offered a settlement by which you will eliminate the lien if that amount is paid by whatever deadline you set.
Okay, so you are supposing a cash transaction at that point, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Or a payment transaction. It can be either one, but you want a deadline because you really don't want to file a new document that replaces the old document. That's your leverage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Could the lien be reduced? Could you could basically just go back and say, hey, we understand this is the amount, we'd like to reduce it to the X. And
You could do that. That is another approach.
Mm-hmm.
The mechanics of taking a lien that has a face amount on it, which again, I'm assuming the lien simply says $250 a day starting on such and such a date. And so it's accumulated. And so it would be nothing that is getting filed so much as it would be something that's an internal record. If someone then says, well, what's the payoff? Well, based on our action back on, May, whatever today is, we reduced it. So it was this, and it's still accumulating interest and whatever else, unless you say otherwise, or it's just a fixed amount of X. Those are all within the realm of your options.
Mm-hmm.
But the lien itself, the one that's out there, somebody, I presume, unless someone from code enforcement wants to correct me, it should be, as the ones that we do in Kissimmee when I'm the magistrate are, a specific amount per day until satisfied. And so you wouldn't know by looking at it exactly what it was, you'd have to do the math.
Mhm. Okay,
Yes, and basically it's $250 a day between September 7th, 2024 and March 3rd, 2026, which is the date it came into compliance. That's how we came up with the $135,000.
okay.
And again, it's bearing interest at some number, whatever prejudgment interest would be.
Okay. All right. Well, we have a request from staff who feels that 13,550 is the appropriate number. And a request from the representative of the estate that 2,000 is, that the lien cost be reduced to 2,000. Does anybody have any feeling about which way we want to go on this, or how? I mean, we also have a couple of options about, I guess, how it's structured.
Mr. Mayor, I did look up the property appraiser site, and the market value of the home is 127,000, and the assessed value is last year was 79,554.
79,000.
554.
Okay. All right. My inclination is to reduce it from staff's recommendation. However, I would like to make sure that we recover costs or get near it, and that we have a deterrent, value for this. The staff set this number based on our prior precedents when we've had, similar issues come before us, and I think prior councils have come down to the 10% number and figuring that's fair, but it's also dependent on, the facts and situation in every given claimant. So, does anybody would anybody like to offer any number on that, or do they feel that 13,550 is fair? Or 10,000 might be a number that could be appropriate to that. I mean, that sounds good to me. I would support that. I think it's close enough to our precedent that it remains some deterrent value, but it's also, we spent a couple of years in covering our costs and getting this. That still is a fair percentage of the assessed value of the home. So, I mean, if we want to find a way to come in at that, in about that area, that would be great. If anybody has a recommendation or a motion on this.
And that would be a payoff amount that's no further interest would accrue.
It could be.
Like the city attorney was saying, are we accepting that as a payment by a certain date?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we could. I mean, it's up to whoever wants to make the motion. I mean, we can structure it any way we want. We can put a number on it however we feel.
Well, whatever amount that we come up with, I think I'd like to give the representative of the estate an opportunity to at least let us know if they're going to be able to make that payment so that we don't have the full lien kick in.
Yes, it's an excellent question. Ms. Green, are you able to answer that for us?
Speak up.
So for the amount of 10,000, it does exceed the amount that we have currently available. And I guess it would really depend upon what time frame that we're being allowed to try to make those funds available.
Could you do it in 90 days?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
We'd make that happen in 90 days.
thank you.
Thank you.
So I will move to approve the reduction of the fine amount ordered by the special magistrate on August 7th, 2024, case number code 11-23-2682 for the property located at 2641 Carver Avenue. And I don't know what the percentage would be, but from $13,550 to $10,000 paid in 90 days.
Okay. Mr. City Attorney, does that sound like something we could structure?
The only thing I would leave in is, and if not paid in 90 days, the full amount of the lien remains.
Bill, would you like to amend your
I can
motion?
amend my motion to include that if it's not paid in 90 days and the full amount of lien goes back into effect.
Okay. We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Lori, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember French,
Aye.
Councilmember Randolph,
Aye.
Councilmember Givens,
Aye.
Councilmember Shaney,
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Okay. The fine is reduced unanimously. Thank you.
Wow.
All right. We're on to our next item, which is the Chippewa sidewalk.
Easy stuff's done.
Yep. Let's see. Mark, would you like to introduce this item for us?
Yes, sir. Just for a little bit of history, back in April of 2023, the city council contracted for the Domrick Hill Sanitary Sewer Extension Project, which included sidewalks on the impacted streets. However, in July of 2024, the city council approved postponing portions of the sidewalk to reduce project costs following the property tax reductions that we endured during the 2024 year, the Live Local year, and with the commercial property taxes dropping on the west side. So we had to drop out a bunch of capital projects. So we eliminated about half of the sidewalks in the sewer service area. The Chippewa sidewalk was kept in the project due to the fact that the Chippewa sidewalk is a long run. There's a couple long runs over in the Domrick Hills area. That's one of the longer runs that connects a large chunk of the neighborhood over to Thistle, which then connects back to the middle school and Domrick Elementary School. So it provides good access for the children to and from the schools. During the construction, the sidewalk was completed on the north side of Chippewa Trail between Clydesdale and Ponca. That length is currently constructed right now. However, concerns were expressed regarding the remaining section, primarily between Chippewa Trail and Thistle Lane, from Tomahawk to Thistle Lane along Chippewa, primarily due to large live oak located at 2007 Chippewa Trail. The tree at 2007 is a 52-inch live oak where the root extends well into the right-of-way and under the street. There's some pictures that were provided in your agenda packet, so you can see that, but I think most of you have probably been out to the site to take a look at the situation out there. Due to what I would call the level of care that the sewer contractor was showing for the sidewalk portion of the construction, we felt that it was prudent to delay the construction. And when I say that, we had a contractor that specializes in underground utilities. It was also doing sidewalk work, and it was a different level of care than one of our typical sidewalk contractors would take that we've done through other parts of the city. So we felt it was prudent to stop that construction at that time and to provide a little time to evaluate alternatives, address the concerns of the neighbors, and ultimately bring it back to the city. So if we jump to the next slide. We have essentially 5 options that are outlined in the staff report. I'd like to touch base on option 2 first, because it shows 4 here. Option, and this is a little hard to read, so I will go over it. Option 2 is the installation of a traffic calming curb extension, which would be sort of a chicane or a bump out to shift the sidewalk away from the tree. So this would push the sidewalk out the curb line out 3 to 4 feet to try to avoid the root zone. When you do that, unfortunately, that places pedestrians what's considered a typical line of travel. So a car traveling down that lane, which would be westbound, would have to make a turn to not go up on the sidewalk. There's also some congestion that occurs out in that area. Anybody that's familiar with the areas, the neighborhood south of Thistle, especially during school pickup time, knows that people park along those streets in those neighborhoods because they don't want to wait in the Maitland Middle School or Domrick Elementary line. So they have their kids walk over, they pick them up on those streets, and then they proceed to their next destination. So that's been an ongoing problem over the years. So as the Public Works and the design engineer looked at that option, they recommended against it strictly for liability purposes. And the design engineer had some grave reservations about designing that and putting pedestrians potentially in the line of traffic. So that's why that is handled here as an asterisk, is not meeting engineering standards. So that being said, I'd like to go into some of the other options that we've taken a look at. Option one is sort of the option that was designed for the project, which is continue the sidewalk construction as originally designed along the north side of Chippewa Trail. This would require construction through the root zone, but would maintain the intent of providing a direct route to the schools and to the quad. And that was the primary driving factor when the city council determined that Chippewa should remain in the sidewalk program for the sewer project. As part of that option, sort of a 1A option, a field adjustment can be made to shift that sidewalk closer to the curb to provide greater separation in the root zone. This alternative, if it were chosen, would require the sidewalk to be 6 feet wide, though it still provides some of that recovery area and clear zone for pedestrians. So it would provide an extra foot of separation that would not be provided with the typical sidewalk that runs 2 feet back on the back side of the curb. Jumping over option 2 and jumping into option 3, this was, we took a look at potentially constructing a boardwalk or an elevated structure over the root system. Couple issues with that. It would somewhat minimize the impact on the root system. There currently isn't a design done right now, so we're not convinced that we could meet ADA requirements with this. One of the options when you'd be doing that would still be driving piles into the root system, so you still have to support the boardwalk, so you still have to drive piles into the root system. There were concerns about obviously the long-term maintenance of a boardwalk in a residential, an isolated residential lot like that. And there were some neighborhood character issues that were brought up too, because everything else is sidewalks out there, to have a boardwalk anomalously pop up right there. That is a little bit out of character with the neighborhood. So we took a look at rerouting options next. The first is to relocate the sidewalk to the south side of the Chippewa Trail. Again, this is not designed, so we don't have any design work there. So if this option is chosen, we'd have to have the design engineer for the project design that sidewalk. It does avoid the tree at 2007, but unfortunately, it impacts approximately 3 trees on the south side of Chippewa. So there's probably 3 trees that would need to be removed if we move the sidewalk to the south side of Chippewa. It also adds a crosswalk, which adds additional conflict points for pedestrians crossing the street where the direct route does not. And also on this run, the owners have never been informed that this would be an option during the project. During the open forums we had for phase 2 through 4 of this, we had sidewalk plans laid out. So if they would have chosen to come to see what was going on with the sewer or the sidewalk, they would have seen that there was no sidewalk in front of their house. They would have no reason to be concerned. So we'd have to re-engage those property owners, inform them that a decision was being made, and work with that through the design process. Now, from that perspective, we did hand deliver notices for this meeting to everyone that was potentially impacted by this project. So everyone where the sidewalk ended at Clydesdale, all the way down Chippewa, both sides, and down Tomahawk. So that everyone got a hand delivered notice of this meeting tonight. The fifth option is to reroute the sidewalk to Tomahawk Trail. So that would be stopping it at Tomahawk Trail to connect down to Mohawk Trail. Obviously, this would avoid the tree. It does add a crosswalk, as with moving to the south side of Chippewa Trail, which would create additional conflict points. There are some concerns about the slope issues on Tomahawk, but we could meet the minimum requirements there. Concerns have been brought up that it's a bit of an indirect route to Thistle. So you'd be rolling down for the vast majority of Clydesdale, then, or vast majority of Chippewa, then taking a left down Tomahawk and then go up Mohawk. There are also some concerns about a magnolia tree at the corner of Tomahawk and Mohawk. There's a mature magnolia there that would have its root zones impacted also. That tree is in a little bit under stress and it's showing some dieback, but there's a pretty fair chance that tree would have to be removed if we went down Tomahawk. Additionally, as is laid out in the staff report, we currently have a drainage study going on at the intersection of Tomahawk and Mohawk. We experience isolated flooding there during heavy rain events, sort of tied into the study we're doing for the Domerick Brook Creek, the issues we had with flooding down the creek that goes into the wetland. So if this option were chosen, that study is not going to have recommendations coming out for about another several months. So we could end up putting a sidewalk in that needs to be then torn out to address the stormwater needs at that intersection of Tomahawk and Mohawk. So what we're kind of looking for tonight is some direction on how to move forward. We felt that it would be better to come to you with the options that were there, because any option that's chosen is going to exceed my spending authority. So we'd have to come back to you on an agenda as a purchase, as a contract for that. The other thing is it allows us to use one of our sidewalk contractors that typically does this work, that would use the proper caution and care when constructing sidewalks, regardless of the location you chose. So we would have a little bit more control over the situation and a little more reliable contractor if and when a sidewalk goes in. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Mark?
On the Tomahawk Trail alternative, that's a pretty dramatic slope down from Chippewa to Mohawk.
Yes.
Will that meet ADA?
There would be, as is laid out in the staff report, we can make it meet ADA. There'd be some grading that will take place there. There'll be probably some F curves, some gravity wall, and some retaining walls that would have to be placed along that road. So it would change the landscape of that road for those property owners on the west side. But we did initial design there, and it shows that it can meet ADA.
So I guess the real elephant in the room is the live oak. I looked at the photos with the roots exposed. There were some, roots there, but I wouldn't say that they were major anchoring roots. And just to clarify, my wife is a landscape architect, so and I worked with her for 30 years. So we've done a lot of projects where there has been root pruning, and a lot of these trees will regenerate roots. Can you guarantee anything? No. But
Either way.
What's that?
Either way, you
Yeah.
can't guarantee anything.
Yeah. So I'm inclined to go the original route and try to minimize the impact to the live oak as much as possible. But I think that live oak is fairly mature. I would say a lot of the feeder roots are probably across the spread of that yard, as well as underneath, Chippewa to the other curb. And possibly even under their foundation. So that's kind of, I look at Tomahawk as an alternative, but I think the slope of it, you're cutting into their side yards, which aren't really deep. They're 25 foot or so. And then you're building retaining walls that also cause a problem if somebody's out there, just grandkids or whatever, could tumble off of that retaining wall. So I think that's a safety hazard that might have to be looked at as far as a rail. So I think the easiest solution is try to minimize the impact of the live oak and go down Chippewa. The other thing I will mention too that Mark didn't say is the lot to the east in the center of the road is a small calming device, little 4-inch curb bump up. So with that there, if they tried to bump out that edge of that curb out to avoid the roots, now you got another conflict because you've got them to navigate around that bump out plus where that calming device is at.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Scott?
I'd be inclined to do as Bill is suggesting, and maybe 1B or 1A, I guess, which would move it out about a foot and help mitigate a little bit the risk of damage.
Nobody in the neighborhood would mind if the calming island disappeared, so we could bump the curb out. Well, it sounds, one of the things, as you mentioned, if you come down Tomahawk, there's going to be some expenses there, extra expenses with the things that have been mentioned. I'd rather spend a little extra money doing everything we possibly can to, mitigate the impact of the oak tree.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I have, so we had on my street, I live in Domrick as well, in Choctaw, and we had a sidewalk installed 4 or 5 years ago. And there were tree conflicts as well. There was one huge camphor tree that is 3 houses east of me. And there were some heroic efforts made to save that tree and move things around and get the sidewalk around to a point where we could get by it. But there was only so much you could do. So I ended up, it is a huge camphor tree, ended up cutting deeply into the roots, almost at the trunk of the tree. And, the tree sits up probably 3 or 4 feet above ground level, past a little retaining wall that was made for that purpose, and cut directly into the roots of this tree that the roots were big around as my leg. I mean, they were big. So, and there was some concern that would be the end of that camphor tree. And I'm not a great fan of camphor trees, and so a lot of people wouldn't mind seeing it go, but it hangs on. It is still there. It is unfazed by that interruption, and the sidewalk is there, and people do get good use out of the sidewalk. So I'm sensitive to the idea of the oak tree, especially. I mean, those are great trees, and you want to do what you can to save them. And in this instance, we have kind of competing issues, and one is safety of people going down the street, and the other is the safety of the tree. And I think I'm going to come down on the side of safety on that. And I think the Tomahawk, I appreciate the effort that went into the Tomahawk option, but to send kids, down a steep slope, to stop at a stop sign at the bottom of a hill to take a hard right, or to cross the street. I think that option doesn't really make much sense to me. It seems to kind of beg for some real crossing issues. And it doesn't help anybody get to the ball fields over on Mohican either. So I would be inclined to do kind of what Scott says, which is, stick with the plan as it is, but move the sidewalk closer to the curb as we get around there. I mean, there might be some significant benefit to avoiding the roots to some degree there. And, I think as Bill has said, and Joan, his wife, is a landscape architect. I mean, oaks are fairly hardy things, and if you think that the roots are spread out through the yard and elsewhere accommodated, I'd be in favor of leaving the sidewalk where it is, except getting it closer to the street to give it a little more breathing room. Anybody else have any comments before we open it up to the public? So let's do that. We have lots of speakers cards, and since we got the speakers cards, and if I don't call anybody's name and get to the end, please, that doesn't mean you can't speak. Just we'll get through the cards first. And if you have a comment, you're welcome to come up as well. So, and we have a 3-minute timer on our clock here, just so you can pace yourselves. But our first speaker's card is from Ashley Dickey. Is Ashley Dickey in the audience? And please come up to the podium and give us your name. And actually, we know who you are and we know where you live. So you don't have to do either of those things. Miss Dickey.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ashley Dickey, and I am an owner at 2007 Chippewa Trail. And as you probably already know, my family and I, we are not for a sidewalk in front of our tree for many reasons. I wasn't fully prepared to speak first. Thought my husband was going to come up here first, but called my name, so here I am. I also have 2 other families that sent me their statements as well. The Archer family, they live directly to the right of us if you're standing in our driveway looking at the street, and also the Solano family lives across the street from us, and they are also not in favor of a sidewalk in front of our tree. And they said I had permission to share that with you as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Dickey. All right. Our next speaker is Tyler Wilson.
Hello, everyone. How are y'all tonight? I am the neighbors to the other side of the Dickies, so I have a mutual interest in keeping the tree intact. One thing as I'm here, sitting here listening to you all chat, obviously there's a lot. There's no real clear path here. Seems like a lot of work to put in a sidewalk, and I guess a question for y'all, like the lady had mentioned earlier, has anyone been on Chippewa Trail during a congested time of day to see if this is really worth the battle that it's kind of creating amongst the neighbors and anxiety we all have? Something too, as you mentioned, there's no guarantees. So while the tree you had referenced before is thriving, allegedly for now, you know, this is a tree that's not just an oak tree. We call it the tree of life. You know, it provides shade for the kids who play in the front yard. There is an aesthetic to it that does absolutely contribute to a substantial resale value to their home specifically, the curb appeal to Arch Tree. And that's one reason why I left Warner Park. If I want to be in new construction, like the Trilago thing over here we saw earlier, with barren lots with young trees, I live in Winter Garden, Horizon West, Lake Nona. Instead, I chose to live in Domrick with a very family-focused neighborhood. So again, it seems like a lot we're trying to figure out here. And kids are gonna be kids no matter what. So I understand as a father too, and someone that moved to Domrick for the family element and aspect, the safety concern of not putting them at risk. But kids are gonna be kids. So even though, yes, it's a slope, it's a decent grade, but it's not like we're talking a 30-degree grade on this road on Tomahawk for this. That does provide the most amount of fiscal conservativeness in terms of impact to the community, in terms of where it's going. Yes, there's some grading going involved, but you're talking about 2 home lots versus 8 to 10 home lots. Last thing I'll say is I do have the luxury and pleasure of being in the OR 3 to 4 days a week as a surgical device rep. So while I know as much as my scrub techs, my nurses, my surgeons, respectfully, I'm not a surgeon. So even though you do have the background of 30 years of landscape architecture and design, an arborist that we've had multiple recommendations from, say there is no guarantee anything you do does have the ability to compromise the tree roots. So if something does happen to that tree in the next 3 to 5 years, there's going to be a pretty substantial issue in the neighborhood in terms of resale value, giving a place for the kids to be able to play. And my time's up.
No, you got a few more. It goes red up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't want this to happen. None of us on Chippewa on the west side, the east side, south side, nobody really wants it. It's just we don't really see the need for it at the end of the day. So while I respect your opinions of having the sidewalk for it, there's other places in the neighborhood that could greatly use it way more before we could in our street. So that's all I got.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. All right. Jeff Fuller. Is Jeff Fuller here?
Good evening. My name is Jeff Fuller and I live at 2044 Chippewa Trail. And I've been a resident there for 28 years, right at the corner of Chippewa and Tomahawk. Long enough to watch my neighbors' children grow up and to watch the ones and watch ones take their place. I'm here tonight because I feel strongly about both of these issues, the oak tree and also the children on Chippewa Trail. The oak tree at 2007 Chippewa Trail is not just a tree. It's part of what makes Chippewa Trail feel like a neighborhood worth living in. It stood there through decades of families moving in, moving out, children growing up, the street changing around it. It's been there far longer than any of us. And the city's own arborist confirmed just last month that it's healthy and thriving. No disease, no structural weakness, no reason it should not stand for decades more. The staff report clearly states that building a sidewalk on the north side would very likely destroy it. Not damage it, but destroy it. Once that tree is gone, it's gone. No amount of regret brings it back. I do not think we can call that an acceptable outcome when other alternatives exist. I have quite a bit more that I had written that I would prefer to read, but hearing your opinions so far, I don't think it's appropriate. I think this is a whitewash. I think you guys stalled in putting the sidewalk in just so you could buy time and get everybody not to pay attention. I mean, I don't think that that's right. I'm sorry that I'm getting upset, but it does anger me. And the first thing I'm going to do tomorrow is visit an attorney to find out if you destroy that tree, how much does it damage my property value? I mean, we elected you guys. You need to figure this out. I understand it's a difficult situation. We have kids 18 on that section of block. We got to find a solution, but putting a sidewalk in front of that tree is not it because it's going to destroy it. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fuller. Lane Dickey.
Good evening, Council. I'm the proud owner of 2007 Chippewa. You guys met my wife earlier. That tree is important to the street. I think it's vital to the community. Ever since Christmas during COVID, we've been wrapping it with white lights. We come home, people are taking pictures with it. It's more than just a tree. When I first met with the city of Maitland, I wasn't anti-sidewalk. I believe in sidewalks. I'm not against them all the way. Talking with Mr. Sargent, the local arborist, they said their solution was shaving the oak tree roots. I'm a little bit of a green thumb. I'm not a professional. Talked to an independent arborist. He was very clear. Anytime you shave the roots on a tree that's that old, 60 to 100 years old, he didn't know. You risk putting it into shock. If that tree goes into shock, it won't die initially. It could die a year, 2, 3 later. I mean, that's, I think, the problem that everybody's having. I think a solution where you don't shave those roots is the best way. Obviously, I would lean more towards option 5. But anything that shaves those roots risks that tree not being part of our street in the future. You know, talking with Mr. Sargent, everybody else over this past year, everybody's been great, but you know, I really think anything that involves shaving those oak tree roots could really affect it. And I would say that's where we're at. That's where my wife is. We're definitely leaning towards anything that doesn't require shaving those roots, which I know I heard Mr. Randolph talk earlier. The independent arborist made it clear, if you shave those roots right there, you can risk it. And that was where I got scared. That was when I kind of drew the line. And that was when I believe that's when everything got held up a little bit. Because my conclusion was, who's going to be liable if that thing dies in 2 years, 3 years? Who are we talking to then? What's the answer? Does anybody have that?
We can, after the public period, we can circle around on that question.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's where we're at. The tree is, when we bought that house, the house was a fixer-upper. My wife used to ask me, what do you see in this house? It was only the tree. We had to rent a house while we renovated this house for 3 months. And then we finally moved into it. Our kids are there. Everybody's kids on the street come there. It's a big deal. So I hope you guys take that into mind. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dickey. All right. Dale Nichols.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay. Do we have anybody else? Okay. Would anybody else like to speak to this issue? Yes, please come up. If you could please give us your name and address.
Hi, my name is Suzette Taylor. I reside at 2026 Chippewa Trail. Hi, thank you for hosting this meeting tonight, board members. I too am a very long-time resident of Chippewa. I have a 25-year-old daughter and a 23-year-old son who grew up on Chippewa with no sidewalks, and they are thriving now as young adults. So not really sure why there's a reason now to add sidewalks to Chippewa. I understand the safety of children, but in my 23 years of living on Chippewa, we have not had one accident of a car and pedestrian incident. Speaking to the aesthetics of the street, in my opinion, you have ruined the aesthetics of our street by putting in your speed median or speed control or common something. The street is very unappealing with your bold, bright yellow striping and the hideous median that is in front of my home. We were promised it would be bricked in. It has not been, so it's full of weeds. And not only that, if you look at the sidewalk that's existing on Chippewa, it's horrendous. I don't know what happened with the grading, but it is literally a mini roller coaster. So I think you've ruined the aesthetics of Chippewa. So for us to lose our beautiful tree that is a statement that you guys even posted at Christmas time on your website with the beautiful lights, you're just taking more away of the beauty of our street and why people come and look at our tree and the kids play. So for that reason, I would like you to consider alternatives, taking the sidewalk down Tomahawk. It's going to save the city money. There's already an existing sidewalk on the north side of north side of Mohawk. So you don't have to rip up anybody else's yards. You don't have to have the expense of laying concrete, which is super expensive right now in this economy. So I would really like you to consider not removing our tree. Again, we've had no incidences with pedestrian and driver accidents on Chippewa in my 23 years of living there. And please consider taking out the medians. They do no good. In fact, they're a hazard. A big truck ran over it today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Would anybody else like to speak to this issue this evening? And if not, we'll close the public period and bring it back to council for further discussion and decision.
So, Mr. Mayor, the first thought after hearing this comes to mind is, do they really even want a sidewalk in that neighborhood? I mean, is this a compelling thing? Hang on. But is this something that has kind of been brought forward as part of that resewering project, but have the neighbors in the past wanted a sidewalk and now they don't? I mean, you know, we could just cut it off right there and not even do a sidewalk and then save a lot of money for something else.
Yes, Mark, would you please speak to that?
Yes, just briefly. 10 years ago now and 2 years ago now, and in the interim, we did a recreation needs survey in the interim. In 2019, we did a bike ped master plan where there was substantial public involvement. The direction that we got through that public involvement is that there should be a sidewalk on at least one side of every street in Maitland to ensure the safety of our pedestrians. This neighborhood was built without sidewalks. Obviously, we all are familiar with the neighborhood. When we did the first bike ped survey, I believe it was in 2018, the number one with 80% approval, 80% request was that sidewalks and trails be expanded to areas that don't have them. After we did the bike ped master plan, we went back for a second check 2 years ago, did another survey, had, I believe, 500 or 600 respondents, which is well beyond statistically significant. Again, number one desire of the residents of Maitland was sidewalks and trails. Again, 80% of the people wanted expansion of our sidewalk trail system. So that's what we're basing the policy on, is the fact that we went out in the community, listened to them, and then started doing the projects that they requested.
So this particular neighborhood was part of a larger plan during the sewer expansion, and then this was placed on hold. Was it taken out at any point completely, or was it always intended that it be revived?
The Chippewa sidewalk?
Yeah, I mean, was there a point at which there was ever a sort of discussion of scaling back the sidewalk
Yes.
program?
Yeah,
And did the
yeah.
council weigh in on that? Because
Yes.
we're new, most of us are new here,
Yeah.
and you know, we're seeing something that feels like it's been in the planning for quite some time.
Yeah, we did bring this back, like I said, during 2024 budget, when we were working at a budget deficit when our property tax revenue was scaled back. We had to scale back a number of our capital projects. We brought that back to city council to take out of the contract. One of our recommendations was that the Chippewa sidewalk be removed, but the discussion at city council at the time was that sidewalk was a critical link to the schools. One of the primary driving factors in the bike ped master plan is to link neighborhoods to schools. And unfortunately, the situation we're in, we have Domrick Elementary and Maitland Middle School in the middle of neighborhoods without sidewalks. So we have families moving in there and no way to safely get the children to and from school without walking to the street. And that's not considered a safe condition by any standard. So that's what drove this. And we had that discussion at city council. They specifically brought up this length of sidewalk and said that would be a critical link to get children to and from the school and the recreation areas at those schools.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. I wanted to circle back, as I said I would, with Mr. Dickey's question about who'd be liable if the tree dies. I don't know, Cliff or you. I mean, there's a lot of ifs in this one, but what would be?
Yeah, there is no liability for the tree dying, period, no matter what we do, because I'll just be candid, we're government. If we build a sidewalk and we need to build a sidewalk, and that decision you make, we can take whatever measures we want, heroic measures if you want to make the tree survive, but we're allowed to build our project. And if the tree dies as a result, that's what happens. So there's not a liability issue there. I can save the man the research. That's a fact. But having said that, the decision policy-wise, whether to do or not do, that's you guys.
Okay, thank you. And there was also, and I appreciate everybody's comments. We all take them very seriously. That's why we have these meetings. But I would like to address, there was some implication that there was some nefarious reason why this is coming so late. And there's nothing nefarious about having a public meeting where everybody can come and talk about the issue. It got here because this is the time it got here. And part of the reason it took a long time to get here was because staff was going through all these options to kind of figure out, are there other ways to do this? So I just wanted to dispel that notion. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
So with that said, this might be a crazy solution, crazy option. But if we were thinking about doing a crosswalk down at Tomahawk, is there any possibility to bring it down Chippewa before the tree, transition with a crosswalk to the south side, from that property line to the west to Thistle? Are there any obstructions there or any trees on those last three properties? I mean, it's out of the box, but it's one way of getting the sidewalk on Chippewa.
The real problem with that is you're creating a mid-block crossing there, and those are, they don't meet any transportation standard, any traffic standard. They are inherently dangerous because you're asking pedestrians to cross in an uncontrolled
Well,
situation.
even at an intersection, they take their life in their hand too.
But if it's a stop controlled intersection with a stop walk, there's a certain assumption that the vehicles are going to stop versus an uncontrolled crossing mid block. So that would be my first impression on that. I'm trying to.
If this was Horatio, I'd agree. But this is Chippewa. It's a low speed street. We don't have any flexibility as a local entity to change that standard.
That's a DOT standard. It's a Green Book standard.
Yeah, but this is not a DOT road.
We've adopted Green Book standards for the city, for all roads in the city.
Okay. Yeah, so again, we've got a lot of options here. These are 5 options to do something, and I guess the 6th option would be to do nothing. And I personally think that taking it down Tomahawk is a mistake, and I just, it is, as everybody knows, it's at the bottom of a hill, and the 2 roads come down to the bottom of the hill, and gravity tends to make kids' bikes move faster and scooters as well. And to force that as the crossing, and it actually requires 2 crossings at that point, rather than taking it down to Thistle where there'd be no crossings, you would be creating 2 crossings and sending kids down to the bottom of a hill. And it just, to me, that just doesn't make much sense. There are other options as well, as I said. One is to do the bridge, and it has its own risks as well. I mean, I guess that the idea is that you would put some kind of a wooden structure over the roots there. But we don't know whether or not that would meet ADA because you've got to bring it back down, I guess, right? So you create some height and then you've got to, what goes up must come back down. But so that one has some questions about it. The bump out chicane seems to be too risky as well to me to put people into that close of contact with the traffic flow. So those are my thoughts about this. Anybody have any other ideas, suggestions, motions?
Well, it seems 1A is of the options that have been put here is the most viable. I mean, all risk is none without a risk. And I'm also thinking about the risk of not doing anything. If the idea is that the sidewalks for safety and that there was a demand for them, and I don't know how much of that, is backed by statistical data and science, and obviously, anecdotally, we're hearing that there haven't been issues, but the idea was to create a system, that would encourage students and enable them to ride their bikes to school and back, and do it in a safe way. So we have these competing interests here, and it's difficult to reconcile both of them. And I'm trying to protect the tree too. I believe in I love the live oaks, and want to do everything we can to protect those. So it's a difficult situation. I think it'd be easy to just say, don't do anything. But there's clearly has been political support and community support for a sidewalk system over the years. I don't know how much how much conflict there is between the neighborhood itself and the wider community and its demand for these kinds of improvements, because they're not in the room here. So I'm just expressing all the things that are going through my head as I hear this. Having this presented to us, it was almost just an engineering problem. Just, how do we do the least damage to the tree and resolve all the issues of ADA compliance, not create new problems, not put more trees at risk, all of the various other issues that arise with every other option. And when I looked at this, it seemed the first 1B or 1A was the one that was had the least risk of them, and that's not inconsequential. But moving it out a foot, I don't know. Again, I don't know how much that helps. I would think it would help something. I don't know how closely that's been looked at, what that would, that extra foot would mean. I don't know whether how closely you can analyze that to see how much shaving would be required if you were pushing it out a foot. So
I guess I could only add one thing in option 4. Is the neighborhood okay with taking out 3 other trees?
Well, that was
to
my
save-
consideration
To save
too.
the live oak. I mean, that's certainly the option that's here. And up to 3 trees would be impacted possibly that are not as mature and majestic as this live oak. So, I mean, I guess the question would be, do we need to go back to the residents along the south side of the road? And again, we have the right of way there, so they really can't say no. But if the neighborhood accepts 3 trees to save 1, which is definitely a majestic, live oak, that's might be the way to go.
Okay. Well, that would mean a new process on this, and a new, more community involvement on that. If there's an appetite to do that, I wouldn't want to put everybody through that if nobody wants to do that. But I won't know if anybody wants to do it until they get out here and speak to it. So that's kind of a chicken and egg issue. I will also say, that putting a sidewalk or putting concrete over tree roots is not an uncommon thing. I mean, it happens all the time. Anybody can take a walk around any of their own neighborhoods and look at the sidewalks around there and look at the trees they're right out in front here. If you go down just right in front of the park here, we have a sidewalk that's right, can't be 3 feet from some of these trees. And those trees, and that was done 10 years ago. I mean, those trees are fine. The tree in my neighborhood is thriving, 5 years after being, hacksawed through it. I think there's another tree that we went in on the sidewalk projects we did right there in front of I think it was on Parliament Road, right in front of the Maitland Church, the old Baptist church over there, and put a sidewalk right across the roots of another large live oak there. And that was 5 years ago, something like that. And that tree has not suffered. So I think the impression that was left is that this means the death of this tree. And I don't think anybody's said that's the case. I know that our report doesn't say that. We have an arborist who says there's a big risk of that, but these are risks that we take in doing public projects. So I'm not guaranteeing the safety of this tree should we go forward with this, but I'm just saying, let's not have it in our minds that this sidewalk necessarily spells the death of a tree. It doesn't. So it'd be nice to have a motion on this perhaps, or figure out what we want to do with it. I know this is a difficult decision, and we've heard from people who feel very passionately about it. And they're part of our community, and, we're here to hear them and to act accordingly. And we have other, concerns from other folks in the neighborhood as well. So I think we should move forward on this one so that we can move on to the next one. Does anybody have any ideas about how to do that?
Who wants to be the bad guy?
Well,
I'll make a motion that we select option 1B and try to minimize the impact to the oak.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for option 1B, and just to be clear on what that is, that means the original route, but swinging closer to the curb.
Correct.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second. So Laurie, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Givens,
Aye.
Councilmember Randolph,
Aye.
Councilmember French,
Aye.
Councilmember Shaney,
Aye.
Mayor Luntz.
Aye. Okay, we have decided to go forward with option 1B, which is the sidewalk moving closer to the curb as much as we can to preserve the routes there. Thank you all for coming. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's. Yeah. You can go. Yeah. No, you can just go. Okay. Let's go to the next decision, which is Old Horatio Avenue Bridge and Shed Structure. Mark, would you like to introduce this item?
Yes, sir. Here again, to give some little bit of background on the situation we're dealing with here. Old Horatio Avenue became a local street when the DOT built the current alignment of Horatio Avenue back in the early 1970s. Back in 1985, the city had a bridge inspection and load rating performed that limited the live load on that bridge. So rather than replace or improve the load capacity on the bridge, the city council decided to construct a cover to restrict the height of vehicles that travel over the bridge. So by default, reducing the live load on that bridge. In 2014, the first cover, which was at 7 feet tall, was damaged by a vehicle and subsequently removed. The city rebuilt the bridge with additional foot of clearance at 8 feet that met new codes. So in order to continue to restrict trucks from crossing the bridge, 2 park gateway signs were constructed on either side of the bridge with maximum height indicator and a deflector to bump the top of your vehicle if you weren't going to make it under the bridge. In June of 25, the bridge collapsed and was removed. That structure is covered by insurance. The replacement value that our insurers placed on it is $100,000. However, the insurance company will reimburse for additional replacement cost if it exceeds $100,000. And I'll get into that in just a minute. Right now, from our design team, our contract design team, the estimate to replace the structure, the cover, is between $120,000 and $200,000. So staff engaged one of our architects to provide a proposal for design from design all the way through construction management to replace the cover. The proposal came in at a little over $120,000. The estimated cost to replace the cover is therefore $241,000 to $321,000. Most of that should be covered by our insurer. If the city council does not want to construct the structure, new weight limit signs can be placed on the existing park gateway signs, and those can be repaired at a cost of $5,000. So you have an option to repair those 2 gateway signs that have the hang bollard that will hit the truck and put some weight limit signs on there and kind of be done with it. However, since we're going into this, approaching it as a project, since the old cover came down, the bridge condition was evaluated by one of our structural engineers. We felt it was prudent. If we're going to be considering putting another structure up, that we should look at the condition of the bridge. This type of bridge has a typical estimated life of 75 years. The engineers found some problems, not surprisingly, that needed to be addressed. So our structural engineer estimated that the recommended repairs would extend the life of the bridge by about 15 years. The estimated cost for plan preparation through construction of the necessary repairs is about $200,000. That's just to bring it up to snuff right now. The estimated cost to design and construct and replace the entire bridge with a new bridge is about $530,000, and that would be a new bridge, so it would extend that useful life back to 75 years. So with this information, we took a look at some options, much like we did on the last agenda item, and these fall into two categories. So this one isn't really rocket science. It's you either repair the structure that's there, don't put a shed on it, don't put the cover on it, or you replace it, or you leave it, repair it there and put a structure on it, or you replace the bridge without a structure over it, or you replace it with a structure over it. So those are really the four options. There's a fifth option too, but we wanted to just throw that in just because we want to make sure that no option was unexplored. So the first option, to repair the existing bridge and not reconstruct the bridge cover. Under that scenario, we'd updated the weight limit signage would be installed, and the existing gateway signage would be maintained for a cost of about $205,000. Any scenario where you're not putting a cover back on the bridge, you're not eligible for that insurance money. The insurance money is always there because it's replacement cost. The check is in the mail. They valued it at $100,000, so you can use that money for anything. If we put a structure back on and it costs more, we can send that to the insurer and they will reimburse us for that, but they won't do anything for the substructure. So just so I'm clear on that. The option two would be repair the existing bridge while also replacing the cover. It's the same as option one with the construction of the new bridge cover using updated plans. This option maintains the existing bridge while restoring the physical barrier and the previous aesthetics that are over there. The approximate cost for that is about $440,000, with about half of that probably being covered by the insurance payment. Option three would be to replace the bridge entirely with a new structure designed to current load standards. A new bridge would provide the 75 years of service and would eliminate any need for any weight limit. It would be able to handle all weight limits for vehicles that are allowed on the road in America. This also would remove the need for height restrictions. So that straight up replacement would be $530,000. Fourth option would be to replace both cover and bridge. So the bridge would be more to add the character of the area. It would still restrict heavy vehicle traffic the area because there would be that 8-foot limitation. So trucks wouldn't be able to freely go back and forth over the bridge. They'd have to use the two access roads off of Horatio Avenue. But it would restore the character of the area at a cost of between $770,000 and $851,000 as the most expensive option. Option five came up sort of at the end of our discussion as we were thinking a little bit outside of the box from at least a budgetary standpoint, and that would be to repair the existing bridge, which is similar to option two, put the cover on it, but then restrict the bridge to pedestrian access only. So that would be essentially the same cost as the option two, with the benefit of having lower long-term maintenance costs because you would not be bearing any traffic at all then. So the fixes that we would put in place that our structural engineer is recommending for just to stabilize it would most likely last long because there would be no structural load over the project. So again, as we move forward, I'm looking for a little bit of direction here because any option we choose will exceed my spending authority. So I'll be coming back to City Council. So I wanted to have this discussion before we pushed in a direction of bringing an architect engineer on board, getting contractors out there to at least stabilize the structure versus looking at it and expending those funds before we got some direction from City Council. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions of Mark?
Of course.
Yes.
So at this point here, and Mark and I talked about this earlier, when I looked at the Dyer-Riddle report and they gave us our rating on the bridge compared to what the standards are, and it's really fair, substructure's fair, channel good, bridge approach good, the deck is satisfactory. It's not going to collapse tomorrow.
No.
So this isn't something that I think we have to worry about the stability of the bridge. The question is, yes, replacement would be good, but I think that's going to be a budget breaker. And so to me, it's like option 2, where we do a 15-year repair. And again, as Mark and I talked earlier today, in 15 years, the engineers would come back and reassess it. And if it's not been damaged or impacted, maybe nothing's done. So it would be a 15-year cycle for that bridge inspection. But as far as the cover, the insurance is paying for that. So to me, I think option 2 is my best decision, because that way we get the substructure stabilized for another 15 years, maybe longer. We put the cover back on it, but certainly I'm not interested in this having heavy loads go across it. I think, most of the residents in that area don't want to see heavy truck traffic. And so I would limit it to vehicular traffic, light vehicles. I don't want to make it only pedestrian and bicycle. I think that's kind of a waste too. If you're going to spend $441,000, I think you want to make it for vehicles. So that's where I'm thinking is option 2 is our best bet.
Option 2?
Yeah, repair. So that would be the 15-year repair scenario of the substructure, and then putting it on the cover, which insurance is going to pay for. So the total would be $441,000.
Mm-hmm. Okay. 441 to the city, not covered.
No, the 200 of that would,
Okay.
whatever the cost of that cover is covered by insurance. So that might be 120, it might be 200,000. I mean,
So it's 441 minus whatever we get back from insurance.
And these are all
Insurance covers.
estimates, so
Yeah.
we'd have to firm up these numbers,
Yeah.
but we wanted to get you some at least magnitude number estimates.
Right. Okay. Thanks. So it looks like Old Horatio, were there 7 homes on that? I mean, I'm looking at Google Maps.
on that west run.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm just wondering, I mean, how many heavy loads go up and down that street? I mean, to serve 6 homes, 7 homes. Anyway, that's just, I'm surprised that.
Yeah, I don't know if an Amazon truck exceeds the tonnage or not.
Trash trucks. We have
Yeah,
garbage
trash
trucks.
trucks.
Garbage
and
trucks.
Garbage trucks are
Yeah.
some of the heavier vehicles on the road.
Fire trucks.
Fire
could-
trucks are
yeah.
some of the heavier vehicles on the road.
Okay.
So they serve.
All right.
But they don't.
Any other questions of Mark on this? All right. Let's go to the public on this. And we have speaker cards up here for this as well. And I'll call the names, and if anybody would like to speak, if they didn't get their name called, you can speak afterwards. Mrs. Bailey? Brenda Bailey? Oh, Brian Bailey.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for your time today, and I just want to commend you all and your service to all of us as a community. Seeing what you've gone through today is appreciated. So again, my name is Brent Bailey at 921 Pace Avenue. I'm here to provide my support for option 2 or option 4, and that is leaving the shed structure in place while minimizing the large traffic through that area. First, I want to touch on the character of our neighborhood. The covered bridge is more than just a crossing. Its aesthetics are a vital part of what makes our corner of Maitland feel like home. We believe the current design fits perfectly with the broader community and preserving the look and feel. The replacement of the structure and shed is a priority for many of us. More importantly, we view option 2 or option 4 as the safest approach for our families by keeping both access points open to car traffic while using the covered bridge shed as a physical height restriction we naturally limit heavy truck traffic and through traffic that doesn't belong in a residential area. We have many young children that use this intersection on their bikes, and currently the pump station creates a significant blind corner for those kids crossing at this intersection. Furthermore, we must consider the flow of traffic onto Horatio. If we were to limit the traffic on one side of Old Horatio, it would create a dangerous bottleneck. As the father of a young driver, I am very concerned about the prospect of her and other students having to make the difficult left-hand turn against the heavy increasing traffic on Horatio with only one way out of the neighborhood. Regarding the budget, I asked that the structural bridge repair be considered separate from the architectural shed, I think as you have noted. The repairs are a necessary maintenance item regardless of the cover. I have high hopes that our talented staff and the Honorable Steve Shaney know that who is an expert engineer can collaborate to find innovative ways to minimize the capital outlay for the shed without sacrificing the safety and aesthetics benefit that it provides. So in conclusion, in summary, option 2 or option 4 offers the best balance of safety, community character, and practical traffic management. It protects our kids on bikes, supports our young drivers, and maintains the Maitland charm we all value. Thank you for your time. I yield the floor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Right, Robin Dowdett.
Hello, thank you, council. I too, like Mr. Bailey, admire your service to our community and have more appreciation after sitting here tonight and just watching the process. I'm Robin Dowden. I live at 931 Adios Avenue. My husband and I have lived there for over 25 years. And I just want to also support that we have loved our covered bridge. We love the charm and character that it adds to our community. And I'm hoping that we find a way to rebuild it and keep it. And I'd also just like to note that the signs that were installed on either side of it have not been a favorite of many of us. I understand why they're there to try to keep the taller vehicles from hitting the bridge, but aesthetically they're not attractive. And the PVC pipe that hangs down from it, that now most of them are cracked and broken and just aren't maintained, also detracts from the look of the whole area. So just to note that, and we do want to have 2 exits. That just seems, if we go down to 1 exit from our area, that's going to create traffic issues and safety too, pulling out on Horatio. So just adding my support to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Dowden. Is Joan Davidson here? Please come on up to the podium.
As noted on my card, I live at 350 East Trotters, which is in Delroy Park, right behind the covered bridge park. I'm very appreciative of the city manager's clarification that in fact the insurance will cover the shed, the cover. And so really the cost is about the substructure, which I assume would have to be attended to regardless of the decision about the shed. I know that Maitland's priorities, their strategic priorities, focus upon enhancing the city's image as well as the character of the neighborhoods. Our particular neighborhood, I would say the past 2 years, has been relatively disadvantaged compared to neighborhoods with comparable homes because of Duke Power's decision not to put utilities underground there. In fact, their decision was to increase the number of poles so our utilities would be more secure. I think that not replacing our covered bridge only compounds the insult that the fact that we do not have underground utilities. I also want to emphasize what has been mentioned about concern, especially for children, but others as well, given that Pump Station 4 was built with the brick walls too high and too close to Old Horatio. What then happens is when you come down from the bridge, there is a blind spot because there are sidewalks immediately to the east and west of the pump station. You cannot see until you're very close to those sidewalks if a child on a bike or foot is coming into the road. Residents know to drive slowly. If there are heavy trucks already perhaps driving faster, they're going to have a very difficult time stopping, coming down. It's not a huge hill, but there is an incline there. I actually cycle a lot. When I get to Old Horatio, I always clip out there, cross the street, and clip back in. Children do not do that. And so I think it's a real safety concern if heavy trucks are allowed to come there. One last comment about the homes on the west side. There is an area for trucks to back up and turn around. It's not as if heavy traffic is prohibited. Trucks cannot get to that. Those homes are served by the heavy trucks, but there is a backup area, and then they exit via Old Horatio as opposed to Oakley. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Davison. Steve Soldati. Hope I got that name correct.
I nailed it.
All right.
It's got a little Italian flair to it.
I'm gonna go with the first one just to see if I can get a Steve.
Yes.
All
yes,
right.
ma'am.
That was easier.
Good evening, council and fellow neighbors and residents. I come to you today as more of a concerned father of two beautiful children with my concern about the safety of this decision tonight. You heard from our fellow citizens tonight that safety is a high concern, so I just want to continue to convey that. Needless to say, it's a lot of the same talking points, but over 9 years ago, my wife and I, before we had kids, were looking throughout Maitland for a new home to raise our family because we were on a busy street in College Park. And so when we found Delray Park, we immediately were attracted to its charm, you know, the covered bridge being one driver and the vicinity to the nearby parks. One thing that I think you can probably put two and two together is that the neighborhood and the parks, there's a direct connection between or around this bridge location. So having the covered bridge will add to its immediate safety of all of our kids, my kids, and everyone else who comes to this area to walk around and enjoy the beauty of the area. So and then also the egress and ingress location, just having two ingress and egress locations would be very beneficial as well. So with that, a lot of the points that my fellow neighbors have said already, I was going to say, but I just want to continue to reinforce those safety points in this decision. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Soldati. Britta Ryman.
Hi, I'm Britta Ryman. I live at 80 Oakley Drive. I just want to express the same sentiment. I think the covered bridge was so charming and it was such a sad moment to see that fall in last year. And I think all of us thought to ourselves, is this going to ever be rebuilt? So I was really excited to see that this was on the agenda for tonight. I think overarchingly, there are so many moments and part of architecture that the charm has been lost. And that was really prevalent with the covered bridge So I'm excited and happy to hear that that can be covered by insurance. And I hope that that would be continued on for the legacy. I myself was really excited about option 4. I know it's a big cost, but I think if y'all are going to do something, you can do it right and not have to worry about it for another 75 years. I'd also note, I don't live directly next to the bridge, but often when you're looking over, there's these big unsightly pipes. I'm not sure if any of these other neighbors have noticed that. But if the opportunity arises to maybe cover those, I think that would help with the beautification. Also, it's a lovely entrance for anyone on the canals coming from Winter Park to Lake Minnehaha. So like any area to increase the beautification, I think would be really wonderful. And of course, with kids and families and just being able to enjoy the bridge. I know there's so many different traditions and folks love driving under it during Christmas time. So just wanted to share my support for option 4 if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ryman. Okay. I've paddled under that bridge many more times than I've driven over it. So it is quite a nice little thing to paddle under. All right. Let's close the public. Anybody else? Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Please, if you could give us your name and address.
Good evening, Fred Venturoni, 630 Old Horatio Avenue. The bridge is done. Get in a boat, go underneath it. Chunks of concrete are falling off, rusted rebar. Successive city councils have kicked that can down the road ever since the widening of Horatio, back in the 70s. So you need to do that. Yes, the covered bridge is an enhancement to it, but there's another option that I think you should consider. There's an arched walkway that connects Eastwind over to Winter Park over Snake Run. Rip the bridge out, put an arched pedestrian bridge, which will allow the bigger, newer boats that are sitting up higher to egress underneath the bridge to get over to Lake Minnehaha. It'll also enhance the walkability, bicycle ability of the neighborhood. Come over to my house any morning or evening. There's a lot of foot traffic because of downtown Maitland. So they use that road all the time. Now, Oakley and Trotter's residents leaves them one option. Put a traffic light at Oakley. It'll benefit Minnehaha Park egress and entrance, and it'll help the residents of Oakley and Trotters. Thank you. And Bill, thanks for getting this on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Venturoni. Anybody else like to speak to this issue this evening? Yes, Ms. Burns.
Hi, Diane Burns, 220 East Trotters. First of all, I didn't know that any of this was going on with regard to plans for the bridge, and so I'm very encouraged to see that all this work has been done and these options have been developed. I'm a little discouraged that I had to hear it from a neighbor, and I guess I kind of thought that we'd get a blanket email or something that would tell us that things were being considered. But I'm glad to be here tonight and that all these options are still on the table. I'm really wanting to speak out for the advantages of having 2 egress ways to the Trotters and the Oakley neighborhoods. Recently, when the electric work was being done at the corner of Oakley and Old Horatio, that egress was closed to us for a couple of days, and we had to use the old Horatio access over the bridge. And I could easily see where hurricane damage might close one egress or the other, or flooding or something like that. So I just think it's important that we maintain the 2 automobile egresses. So I'm actually opposed to number 5. I do like either 2 or 4 that keep the bridge open to automobiles, but also restore the covered bridge for both its aesthetic appeal and the fact that it limits the heavy and tall trucks in the neighborhood. And I thank you all for your careful consideration on this. It's important to a lot of us in our neighborhood. We actually drive in that egress on a daily basis. It's an easier egress if you're coming from the west than the Oakley egress. But I do see advantages to the people who think we should have a traffic light at Oakley as well. So thanks for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Burns. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Paul Schumacher, 81 Oakley Drive. It's been my home for 47 years. I've raised 4 children and 5 grandchildren that have enjoyed the covered bridge, feeding the fish, fishing off of there, and greatly enjoyed. I was sorry to see that it was wrecked twice now, and hopefully, and I'm really happy to hear that there is insurance money to pay for it. That's very good. I'm not going to be here in 75 years, so I don't think it matters to me that much what you do about repairing it. I certainly can understand that there are budget constraints to repair or replace the whole bridge. That does sound like a tidy sum. But I do think the idea of repairing it, reevaluating periodically makes sense to me. So I'm anything that preserves the covered part, though, I'm in favor of. And it sounds like that's not really going to be an issue. And it also saves you the opportunity, or it would save you the having to change the name of the park.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Schumacher. Okay, anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Andrew Pete, 530 East Trotters. I moved in about 5 years ago when me and my family were looking at homes and we were going around Maitland, Winter Park. The covered bridge is one of the things that sold us. It sounds like that part is not going to be a problem. Obviously, the insurance money is going to cover that, and it kind of sounds like it's a no-brainer at this point. Obviously, you will be the ones to make that decision. However, certainly if there are budget constraints and it's going to be a budget buster, so to speak, obviously, the option to refurbish it, kind of kick the can down the road a little bit probably may make the most sense. But, me not knowing the exact budget you have to deal with and the other options that you're always faced with, I certainly understand that. I think that everybody in the neighborhood, I don't think you would find one person in our neighborhood or surrounding neighborhood that's going to say they do not want that bridge built. Coming in here tonight, I thought that might have been a risk. It was nice to find out that it indeed was insured, that if it does overrun costs, that the depreciation will cover for that also. So obviously, I just want to throw my support for redoing the bridge and whatever you do deem best as far as refurbishment or doing the whole thing over. But heavy traffic, bigger trucks coming in, there are the 2 egresses. I'm obviously in favor of that. When I'm heading east, I always come in Old Horatio. When I'm coming the other way, I come in the other direction. And like some of our neighbors said, sometimes with traffic, one is much easier than the other. So anyways, that was all I had. Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pete.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else like to speak to this? Anybody at all? Okay, let's close the public period and bring it to council for further discussion or a motion. I would say, there is certainly budget constraints about what we're going to decide to do this evening. I mean, I've talked to the city manager. Some of our revenues are not looking as good as they were expected or projected. and we do have a fairly tight budget that we produce every year. And so we don't have a lot of, it would be great to be able to, completely redo all our new bridges and throughout the city and make sure that everything is up to brand new code. But, if as Bill pointed out, we can do certain fixes to this and, extend the life of the bridge by 15 years and then do another assessment at that time. It might be more life left in that than we know. But so that said, does anybody have any opinions about what we should do?
If we had all the money in the world, I'd say let's replace it. And that's when I was looking at this today and analyzing it, looking at the reports. That's where I was coming from, is a total replacement, but I don't think our budget's going to support that. And after talking to Mark, because when I read the Dyer-Riddle report and the summary, it painted a picture that I thought was worse than it really is. And then when you go to the summary of what the repairs need to be, it's rated a little bit more neutral or better. And so I know what Mr. Venturoni's saying is there are normal wear and tear on concrete, but if we can patch it for the time being and look at putting in the replacement sometime in the future in the CIP down the road, it may be a throwaway cost today, but we might be able to better afford it in the future. At one point, the bridge is going to have to be replaced. We don't know when that's going to be. But if we can do assessments every 15 years and see where it stands, and then try to put some kind of money aside to look at replacement. Although I will say this much, I think the public here tonight will be very disappointed if we have to close that bridge down to completely replace it versus repair it. So it might have to be temporarily closed for those repairs, but it will be probably shorter than replacement. And then certainly coming in tonight, I never envisioned that we would, even if we did a new bridge, that we would allow heavy traffic across this. I just don't think that road is meant to be utilized by, huge trucks going back and forth across the bridge. So I always supported keeping it low, minimal traffic across there. And I will say, when I moved here 39 years ago, I always thought that bridge was covered. I thought it was a historic structure. I was disappointed when I found out it was 85 that went in. So I did say that I looked at the aerials back to 47 with old Horatio, and I think 47, it might have been a wood structure across there. And then about 54, or not, I misspoke, 1940, I think it was a wood structure across there. 47, you can actually see a bridge now spanning it in the aerials. But it wasn't until 70s where it actually, the new alignment came in and less traffic went across that bridge. But I would be disappointed if the cover was never put back. I think, again, we have a few things that I view as iconic attributes in Maitland, and that's one of them. So I would support option 2 at this point. And I'll make that motion that we choose option 2, which is repair the substructure and replace the cover.
I would second that, as I've been a councilman a year now, and when am I going to get my covered bridge back is the number one question I've been asked as a council person. Move forward.
Okay.
I would support it too, but I'd also like to consider design if it goes beyond what, just the replacement, if there's some enhancements. If we could look at costs for some of the description of the hanging replacement of the things that you were mentioning. I don't know how much things have changed since it was last updated, but anything to make it look pretty, and if it's a nominal, cost to us, I think it's a chance to look at that. We can make the decision then about how much that is and whether we can afford it.
Yeah, this may not be scientific, but I'm the new guy and I just like it. So, I agree with what Scott said.
Right. Right. And I would like to say I appreciate everybody coming out. And giving us your opinions. We do take them very seriously. It goes, not everybody wins every night, but I think all the opinions are well considered, and we take the public input very seriously, along with a lot of other considerations we have, including budget and other items. But so thank you for coming out, and thank you for sticking with us till I'm not going to say the time. It's late. So we have a motion and a second. Lori, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Givens.
Aye.
Councilmember Shaney.
Aye.
Councilmember French.
Aye.
Councilmember Randolph.
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye.
And Fred, just to set the record straight, I didn't get it on the agenda. I just asked a question of one of your neighbors over there, if they'd heard about it and so forth.
Okay, rolling on. We have a next decision item is the member and alternate member for appointment for Metro Plan Orlando Municipal Advisory Committee. Lori, would you please? Oh, come on, we're not done yet, guys. Lori, would you please introduce the item?
Mayor and council, this item is for appointment of a representative and alternate representative to the Metro Plan Orlando Municipal Advisory Committee, or MAC. The city's most recent representative has termed out of office, and the current alternate is Councilmember Randolph. Therefore, council action is needed to appoint a member and an alternate member representative. The MAC was established to ensure municipalities not directly represented with Metro Plan Orlando have input in the regional transportation planning process, and the committee meets typically once a month, the Thursdays prior to the Metro Plan meeting.
Okay. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions of Lori on this, or no?
As the alternate currently, I'd be more than happy to be the primary.
Okay. We have a volunteer. Would anybody like to second that or third that?
That.
I'll third it. Okay. Thank you, Bill, for stepping up on that. I'm sorry, unless I stepped on anybody's toes.
He's
I don't think so.
primary member.
We do need an alternate member.
Yeah, I'll volunteer.
All right, we have another volunteer. Steve Shaney. Does he get a
Second.
And I'll third that too.
Okay.
All right. We dispose of that handily. Thank you, gentlemen. Selection of vice mayor. Lori, would you please introduce this item?
So Mayor and Council, pursuant to section 2.03 of the city charter, the council is required to select from among its members a vice mayor who serves in the absence or disability of the mayor. Traditionally, the position of the vice mayor has been rotated among council members. For reference, the past few vice mayors were listed in the agenda report.
Okay. Is there anybody who would like to nominate anyone, or does anybody like to volunteer straight up for this?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Bill.
Right. We have a nomination for Bill Randolph to be the vice mayor. Is there any other? Are there any other nominations before we go on? All right. And then is there a second for Mr. Randolph?
I'll second.
Do we have a third for Mr. Randolph? I'll third it. Okay. Congratulations, Mr. Randolph. You were the vice mayor.
Just don't be asked.
Okay. I think they would be in good hands if I were, so I'm glad you're there. Laura, does that get everything for you that you need? Okay. We have a discussion item of some import this evening. Maitland Art and History Museum proposal for the Clara Domerick Library. Mark, would you please introduce the item?
Sure, just real briefly. As you know, we've been for over a year, actually 2 years now, when we first contemplated construction of the new library. The primary question after whether we should have a new library is, what do we do with the old library? So as we were doing the conceptual planning for the old library, which we are now, since we're going to have two libraries, we're calling it the Clara Domerick Library, because that's where it started and she's the one that started it. So we've been talking about what options are for the Clara Domerick Library. There are certain constraints that are on the property, the primary being that it is a heritage land. And if you're not familiar with that term, a heritage land is a land that within our charter is designated, that all city lands are designated in our charter as heritage lands. It's just what then you designate them with a use. That use cannot be changed, nor the property be sold without a referendum by the residents of Maitland. So right now it's designated as cultural historical. So if that were to change or the city were to look to sell the property, you would need permission from the voters to do that. So as we've been having these discussions and we went through the preliminary design, one of the things that was part of the preliminary design for the new library was to look at repurposing the old library and what kind of options would be there and what those costs would be. The direction we gave to HBM at the time was to take a look at a use as a museum. Not a particular type of museum, but a museum use. So they went through the process of doing that and put some cost estimates forward to us. As we talked about during last year's strategic planning session, this is the year that we're going to have to make a decision on the use. We have design potentially in next year's proposed capital budget. So sometime during this year, we would have to make some decisions on design uses for the library and move that forward. Since those conversations were going on, obviously we have a lot of discussion with the staff over at A&H as one of our cultural partners. So they came forward with the idea of potentially using that library as a historical museum. I don't want to steal all of your thunder, Danny, but we have a limited display of our artifacts in the existing Maitland History Museum. A vast majority of our collection is in storage. So this would allow an opportunity for more of that to be on display and be in more public access. So what Danny's put together is a little proposal for your consideration. It's under discussion because no decisions required right now, but we wanted to get it in front of you now that library is under construction. And the next phase would be to take a look at the Clara Domerick Library and see what the potential is for uses there. So when one of our cultural partners came forward with some ideas, I felt that it would be best to get those in front of you sooner versus later. So with that, are you ready, Danny?
Great, thank you. All right, Danielle Thomas, Executive Director of the Art and History Museums of Maitland. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, wonderful. So I'm so excited to have the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I know it's been a long night. I think this is an exciting note to end on, and I think it's a fitting evening to present. We had so many people coming out here and speaking so passionately about a beautiful old tree and a covered bridge, and what those really are touchstones of memories. And that's what we're going to be talking about this evening is memory and placemaking. I'm presenting a proposal tonight that both preserves the historical Maitland Library building, which is a beloved community space, while also strengthening one of Maitland's cultural anchors. And this is through the establishment of the Maitland History Center, which would see the relocation of our current history museums and collections into the historical library space. So I'm going to share with you what that vision looks like, why this building is uniquely situated for it, and why our institution is an ideal steward for this facility. Now, Maitland has a remarkable history. There are some really big stories for such a small town. This is a place whose founders helped to establish the older self-governed Black township in the United States. This is a place that welcomed presidents and literary luminaries as a Gilded Age retreat. This is a place that gave birth to modernism in Florida through the establishment of Jules Andre Smith's research studio, a place where the Florida Audubon Society was founded, and a place written about by Zora Neale Hurston. Maitland's story is far more extraordinary than most communities of this size, and it merits being shared in a way that reflects this. And interestingly, many of these stories intersect directly with the building we're discussing this evening and the work our organization already does. We operate the Waterhouse residence on Lake Lily, and Charles Waterhouse designed the historic front portion of the Maitland Library, which is the very section that the community voted to preserve. Stella Waterhouse was the first librarian, and Duke Bonka, who was a founding figure for the Maitland Arts Center, later served on the library board. So we already tell these stories in our museums, and in many ways, this building is a part of the work that we already do. Now, when Maitland voters voted to approve the new library, they did so with two clear conditions attached. First, that the historic front portion of the building must be preserved. And second, that the building must remain accessible and open to the public. This was the community speaking to what mattered to them, and our proposal honors both of those conditions fully while strengthening an existing cultural resource. So I'm going to show you what we're envisioning this evening. This is a concept floor plan for the Maitland History Center. The heart of the building is the Maitland History Museum, an expanded exhibition space housed in the library's historic reading room. Adjacent to that is our visible collections, storage, and research access area, where the public can see and engage with our collections. We have a dedicated education and programming room and a flexible exhibition space for rotating displays. So each of these areas solves a specific problem that we face right now and provides a unique benefit to the community of Maitland. For the Maitland History Museum, our current exhibition space across both the history and telephone museums is a little less than 2,000 square feet. So that's smaller than many neighborhood coffee shops. And in that space, we're trying to tell all of the stories that I just mentioned and more. We have entire chapters of Maitland's history that go untold because we simply don't have the room to tell it. This library reading room would give us 3,000 square feet of exhibition space, meaning that the story of Maitland finally has a little room to breathe. You'll see on the map that our current Maitland History Museum exhibitions would double in size, and the remaining space, which is the north wing of the reading room, would house our current telephone museum. And this move integrates that collection into Maitland's story in a way that's a lot more holistic. The next component of the center is visible collection storage, and you can see an example of that here, pictured in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. The American Association of Museums estimates that most institutions globally display less than 5% of their collections. And this solution is becoming increasingly common. In our museum, we have over 4,000 artifacts in our history collection alone. And I would say we have about 500 of them on display right now. The rest of them are stored in large part in our attic, where the public can't access them. And most of those artifacts were donated by the people of Maitland. So moving to visible collection storage, like what you see pictured here, it means that the people of Maitland have access to their own histories and their own artifacts, and they'll be stored in a proper climate-controlled environment. We also want to create a dedicated research and archives room where residents and researchers can sit down and go through our historical photographs and records. In the adjacent room, we would like to create a digitization lab where Maitland residents would have free access to equipment that would allow them to digitize their home movies, their slides, their cassette tapes, their VHS tapes. These are memories that are sitting in attics and garages across Central Florida right now that are beginning to deteriorate. This provides residents with a way to preserve those memories, and if they choose, donate those digital records to our archives so they become a part of the stories that we're going to tell in the future. We would also like to offer free on-site access to Ancestry.com and other resources like that for residents, as well as create a dedicated oral history recording space so that we can capture living memories while they're still here. One of the elements of this plan that our staff is most excited about is dedicated education and programming space. Currently, our teaching spaces are squeezed into former artist studios that hold 10 students comfortably. You can kind of fit in 15, but it's not ideal. So when school groups and senior groups come to visit, it's crowded and we're very limited in how we can serve them. We also provide free event and meeting space to our cultural partners, like the Maitland and Eatonville Chambers of Commerce, as well as other nonprofit groups. But they compete for availability with our paid events in our rental building. So this roughly 1,700 square foot programming room solves multiple problems for us. This would allow us to serve more student groups, to improve our senior programming, to improve our own history programming, and provide a free space for our cultural partners. And this keeps these buildings alive in a way that carries on the library's own tradition of public service, which is important to us. And the last major element of this plan is flexible exhibition space. There are communities of makers in Maitland and the greater Central Florida area. And these are craft artists like quilters, woodworkers, weavers, who have few spaces to show their work. There's also amateur artists that don't have places to show their work. And we don't have exhibition space right now if we want to respond to a timely community conversation or celebrate a milestone without disrupting our permanent exhibitions. So this flexible gallery space would meet that need and keep the building alive and responsive to the community around it. And importantly, the establishment of the Maitland History Center also makes another vision possible at our Historic Arts Center campus. When the history collections move into the new library, move into the historic library building, our current buildings would be free to be transformed into the Andre Smith Museum and Welcome Center. We have visitors who come to us from all over the world to visit our National Historic Landmark campus, but there's no dedicated space to comprehensively tell the site's history or show Andre Smith's artwork. The Andre Smith Museum and Welcome Center changes all of that. For the first time, visitors would have a landing space that properly introduces them to the site's story. And it would also fulfill a long-standing promise by the city outlined in our lease to memorialize Andre Smith in a way that's worthy of his legacy. So this proposal ultimately allows for the transformation of 2 cultural facilities in one coordinated move. And taking a step back, this proposal completes a connected cultural and civic map for Maitland, beginning at Lake Sebalia and moving all the way down to Lake Lily. And so for local residents, this is a more connected version of the community that they already love. So why us? Why this proposal? There's several reasons why we feel this is the best use of the historical library space. The first is that we have enjoyed a successful public-private partnership with the city for more than 50 years. This is a vetted working relationship, and we don't take that for granted. The library property also carries the heritage property designation that Mark mentioned, restricting it for cultural and historical purposes. And our proposal fits that designation perfectly. And it also provides the type of public access to the space that was requested when the plans were approved for the new library. We also bring real funding resources to this project. Because of our size and our mission, there is grant funding available through Orange County and the state of Florida, specifically for projects like this. We've managed 2 Orange County cultural facilities grants since 2020. You'll see one of them pictured on the right. We're currently wrapping up construction in right now. So this isn't just work we know how to do. This is work we have done successfully. And finally, this proposal fulfills the promise that the city made that I mentioned in our lease to permanently memorialize Andre Smith and his legacy. So this allows the city to deliver on that. So it's one proposal, one cultural partner, and multiple promises that are kept. And this is a timely conversation. The city anticipates that the library will be in its new home by fall of 2027, which means renovations on the existing building could begin at the end of that year. And that timeline puts us in an excellent position to seek outside funding if we begin planning now. In total, this would be about a 3 to 4 year project across both properties. And operationally, this is also a very comfortable timeline. We anticipate additional costs for personnel and operations across both the History Center and Andre Smith Welcome Center to be roughly $30,000 annually, a fairly nominal amount that we can offset over the timeline through programming and fundraising. And in large part, it's because this is work we already do. We already run a history museum and a telephone museum. The real addition is the Andre Smith Welcome Center. And so I want to come back to the floor plan for a moment and summarize what this proposal does. This expands our ability to tell Maitland's history. It better preserves our collections and increases public access to their own artifacts. And it increases our ability to serve the public through dedicated programming space. This ultimately is about strengthening and modernizing an existing public resource that has already been serving this community for decades. But I want to leave you with something more than a floor plan this evening, and share something that came up during our planning process. As we were discussing this proposal with staff and board, a question kept coming up. Why do so many people choose Maitland out of all of the places that they can live in Central Florida? And so we started asking residents why they chose this community, and the same answer came up again and again. People choose Maitland because this is a place where if you want to belong to something, all you have to do is show up. It's a place where you know your community, where you see the same people putting in their time and their effort over and over again. And if you show up, you become a part of that too. And that is becoming increasingly rare. As Orlando grows and technology pulls so many people inward, it's so easy to lose your sense of place, to live somewhere and not be a part of a community, to not know your neighbors. Maitland just feels different. There's a true sense of place and connectivity here. And I believe our proposal for the Maitland History Center honors that, not just for the histories we preserve, but for everybody living here today whose lives and memories are going to belong to that story. And so I thank you for the opportunity. I'm happy to answer more of your questions. We have our staff and our board member here, and I believe we have a lot of community support for this project.
Okay, thank you, Danny. That was a great presentation. Does anybody have any questions, Dan?
I brought with me, oh, go ahead, Scott. I brought with me tonight a document I know you're familiar with, John, and probably you too, Cliff. It's dated 1995, and it's the Culture Quarter Master Plan. And, you know, I think one of the keys here, we've always envisioned from Lake Lily to Asbury Methodist Church, this corridor of cultural partnerships. This map is perfect because that shows that connectivity that we've always wanted in this area. And I think this is really the jewel in the middle where people can start one place and find their way to other places along that route, whether it's the library or the art center. But I think this is really a good use of this property. And you know, I've spoken here about the history side of things. It's too much of a kept secret. It needs to be out there and displayed more. And sitting next to the historian, he should be talking about this more than I am.
No, this is very exciting. I remember seeing, we used to have cultural corridor on the entryway to Lake Lily, and always imagining it, but now with the library, the new library and the expanded classrooms. And I just think this is perfect timing and long overdue. When art and history came together, I think, I think you've done your best to treat them both well, but history has certainly not had its space. And even the signage, when you go through town, it'll say Maitland Arts Center. It's always Maitland Arts Center. And yet we know how rich that history is. And you've been telling the story very well, but this space will really allow us to showcase it. One question I have is about the papers, the kinds of, not those items you put in showcases, but the file cabinets. And I'm hoping that whatever system you put in there allows for a really modern system of archiving those collections, those paper collections, which aren't as, fun to look at, but are vital for the keeping our history, our community's records, accessible and making them more easily accessed and discoverable to those who want to do research.
That's great. Yeah, and that's the research and access room that you see off of the visible collections and storage. That's what we envision that space to be, where
Great.
flat files can be kept and all of those papers can be preserved, and that space will be available so people can sit down.
Yeah. It's very exciting, and I think it'll be great for our downtown area. All of this coming to life. It's just a very exciting time to be in Maitland, but I can really see it, adding to the vibrance of this cultural center and commercial district, and it's great to see it all, envisioned in this way. So thanks for sharing this.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Well, yes, ditto, I think. I don't want to belabor that point, but they're points well taken. I did have some questions, though, about, how we get there and how you all get there. So I would imagine there's lots of costs involved with some of this. I mean, we would be moving out what is currently a library and replacing it with what would be a museum. And I was struck by the visible collections thing, which I've seen in a couple of museums, and it's fabulous. But they're but it's a lot of glass and a lot of metal and a lot of structure and a lot of architecture. I would imagine that wouldn't be cheap. Was that something that you all have built into a budget somehow, or?
We've looked up rough numbers for it. It would be for about 1,000 square feet of it for an institution like this, not the Smithsonian, but for, a mid-sized museum, it would probably be about $150,000 to $250,000. And that's where our ability to bring grant funding to this really makes this viable.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's one aspect of it, but I guess for the rest of it as well, you're considering a full renovation of the.
Yeah, there's pretty minimal renovations needed for our needs. For example, the education and programming room, it's beautiful. It probably needs a new carpet, but it's already a clean, well-equipped space. The history museum, a lot of it is just building in the display cases and things like that. But as far as full building renovations, I know the HVAC is an issue that needs to be replaced. So other than some facility issues, we wouldn't anticipate major renovations needed to the structure itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Let's see. That's really all I had. I mean, I'm just glad you all put together such a thoughtful process here and give us something to think about. We do need to. We do need to make a decision. We're not going to make one tonight, but obviously we need to make a decision in the coming months about what to do with the space. And if we determine to go in this direction, I would imagine there'd be another lease involved with the property, and we'd have to figure that out as well. So anyway, those are my thoughts about it. Anybody else? Any further comments? Mark, anything from you?
No, just from a process standpoint, this is obviously just a presentation for discussion. From my perspective and from Danielle's moving forward, we can refine some of these ideas, but at some point in time, a decision is going to have to be made to take that next step forward, determine what the cost of a renovation like this would be. We had some scale of magnitude costs that HBM put together for us during the conceptual design phase. Now that if we have a user, those discussions would have to be taken to that next baby step further, not to a schematic design, but that next conceptual design about what that would be, what the systems look like, ADA compatibilities from the bathrooms especially, and for accessible, what really the plumbing, electrical systems look like, to see what kind of renovations would be needed. I find it fascinating when we first sat down and talked to Danny, how she just did, waxed eloquent about how beautiful the building was. And it just goes to show that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So where she sees
there's a reason we're moving the
library where they see a fantastic space and are over the moon on it. I'm like, I want to believe. I want to be with there to believe, and it is very convincing. But I certainly think that what HBM was looking at, and then those conceptual designs. This is a toned down version of that. So we're talking about that $3 to $4 million number with the money we have in city council capital. This doesn't get you to that. That was a complete gut reno. This is really a repurposing of the existing facility. So it's a big difference between what we were talking about there to what we're talking about now. So as we refine this, the next step, HBM is still under contract with us to do at the library, but potentially repurposing of the existing building was also in the RFQ that we put out. So we could bring them on board anytime to start some of that work to give a feel for what the space could be and what those costs could be. So just throwing that out there, that's a next step that we could take sometime during this budget year before we dive into next, but we do have some time to figure that out.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, as I recall, we had in next year's budget about 300,000.
Mhm.
And what I said at our last strategic meeting was, before we spend that money, we really need to know the direction we're going in. So we're spending it efficiently. And I think I will say this, they are masters at adaptive reuse. You give them a building, they can figure a way to use it the way it's configured. And so, yeah, a lot of this is the guts of the building, the HVAC, making sure that it's archival quality, that they have ADA access for bathrooms, but it's really kind of the envelope.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to be tearing out walls and redoing things.
No.
Which saves a lot of money.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, but also Danny said back to 20, they've gotten 2 grants from TDT, but back to 2013, GMB was also a grant through TDT. So they've got 3 projects under their belt working with Orange County and getting funded. So I have no doubt they have confidence in the Art Center as well of properly utilizing the tourism development tax dollars for the best use. So I think that's another caveat here. They can bring some of that money.
Right.
And not all of it's going to be telephone museum, Mayor.
I wasn't going to say anything. But there is a telephone exhibit in there, and can you? Yeah, I think, a little bit goes a long way, I'll just say. There's a reason we don't use those telephones anymore, too. So, okay. Well, thank you, Danny, for that presentation, and thank you all for putting that together and coming down here and spending your evening with us. All right. We are on to the penultimate moment, city manager's report.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I put a flyer in front of everybody's chair today. I think we all talked about, we're going to be starting golf cart enforcement this week. The flyer that I provided to you is what the police department is going to be providing to the folks that first starting gathering at Domrick Elementary and Maitland Middle School, since there is a congregation there of golf carts, to inform them of what the law is and what the expectations are to make those carts street legal. And it's kind of perfect timing because it's the last 2 weeks of school, so we'll be able to get that captive audience where we know they are. And we always give some time before active enforcement starts. This gives them over the summer to make the upgrades to their golf carts to make them street legal. So we're rolling that out this week, so you may get a call about that. But then we'll be doing that soft enforcement throughout the summer because you don't capture everyone at the schools. There's just a huge concentration there. But word will travel fast. And so as chief's officers see folks on the street that aren't street legal, they have the ability to stop them, provide this, not ticket them, but provide this information to them, let them know that we are going to be starting enforcement to make sure that all the vehicles on the street are tagged and street legal to keep them as safe as possible. So we are rolling that out this week. So you will probably hear some input from some of your constituents on how they feel about that. So this one's pretty cut and dried, though. Unlike the next thing, because we do have a bike safety event this Saturday at the community park. This is part of our public outreach for the micromobility, whether it's e-micromobility or just bikes. It's going to be a bike rodeo. We're going to do a short bike ride on our new trail system. I don't think there's a lot of people are aware of what we've done on the west side. And so we're going to start off with a bike ride from Community Park over the bridge to Lake Destiny to at least expose folks to the fact that you can get over. It's not that hard. It's not that far. And it opens up a whole new world if you make it over to our west side. So we'll be doing that. Then we're going to be doing have some exhibits set up and some fun things for the kids to do with little trike races, and we're gonna have some giveaways. And so and the most important thing is the police department is going to be out there talking about safety of micromobility, what the rules of the road are, what they should be doing, to continue to raise that awareness as we're getting ready to put together our plans for micromobility, which we'll be going to the TAB as we've discussed on a number of occasions. So this is just part of the big picture that we're putting together. So as we move into whether it be enforcement on micromobility or additional regulation, we'll be able to tell people that we're reaching out, that we were trying to get messaging out to them through a number of different channels. So this is just one of them. So that's this Saturday starting at 9 o'clock. So
okay. And when is the bike
9
ride?
o'clock? The bike would be 9 to 10.
Okay.
And then the event will start at 10.
Okay.
And I can't think of a better meeting since I've been employed by the city to dovetail into our strategic planning with the issues that have come up tonight and some of the history of how we got to where we are today. Because that's what I kind of want to focus on a little bit with the strategic planning, to sort of fill in some of the blanks of where the city's come over the last 10 years to how we got where we are with our current priorities, and what some of the priorities were in the past, and whether they've been accomplished or whether they just dropped off, and the whys for that. So I think on Wednesday morning when we go over our strategic planning, because obviously we're going to be planning for the next 5 years and looking at our strategic priorities, to fill in the blanks and give some background, so it doesn't come as a surprise that things have been done and things have been accomplished. And things have been tried and failed and fallen by the wayside, and the reasons for that. So we don't repeat those, or if we do repeat them, we have the ability to learn from our past experiences. So we'll be doing that Wednesday morning, starting at
8.
Thank you. So that's all I have.
Okay.
There's breakfast and coffee.
Food and beverages will be provided. Lots of coffee.
And it's a public meeting, so everybody, if you got nothing else to do Wednesday morning, please come join us. All right, Mr. City Attorney, any reports?
I am happy to report that I have no report.
Oh, nice report. Okay, anybody on council coming down the line?
I just had a nice community cleanup at Minnehaha Park on Saturday. Not a huge turnout. It was hot, and yet I got to walk Covered Bridge Park, and I will report that there was only one Hershey bar wrapper in the entire Covered Bridge Park. But I will say Minnehaha around the boardwalk, there's stuff down in there that's kind of little kids' toys and things like that. But very clean overall. So good report for thank you Public Works, and thanks to Parks for keeping the parks looking so good. I think they really, to the naked eye, you wouldn't know there was anything at all in there, but it was fun. Thank you.
Okay. And Madam Clerk, any reports?
I second the city attorney.
All right, awesome. Anybody on this side? Anything?
Mr.
No?
Mayor?
Yep.
So I did attend the MAC meeting at Metro Plan on the 7th and talked to the individual from the Expressway Authority. And I'm sure the city staff already is aware of this, but next year, the extension, elevated roadway is going under construction. So it'll be from kind of the west end of Maitland Boulevard in our jurisdiction out to 441.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be quite about a $500 million project. So.
All right. Okay, well, I think that's it. If nobody else has a report, let us consider ourselves adjourned.